Chapter 34. As the highest judicial institution in Sulphur Mountain City, the Supreme Court is usually shrouded in a silent and solemn atmosphere. Just like the motto written on the walls of the hall, proper appearance, strict enforcement of the law, speak little and act cautiously, the staff of the judicial institution that passes by are usually stern, concise in their words and swift in their actions, receiving high praise from the citizens. But today the situation is a little different. The usually silent corridors are filled with noise and quarrels. Chained prisoners awaiting trial filled all the cells. Even the usually empty square is filled with people. At the corner of the square, a gigantic goblin robot has already been turned into a pile of scrap metal. Perhaps, considering the fact that it occupies half of the square by itself, it should be called a steel forest or steel ruins. At the side, a group of goblins and dwarves are surrounding it and crying. There are even goblins who have started to dance their ancestral waist twisting dance, also known as tropical-style belly dance. They seem to treat this robot as their family and are sending it off. Further away, there are quite a number of citizens who were affected by the commotion, but they are unable to enjoy this exotic dance. Instead, they follow the traditions of Sulphur Mountain City and use tomatoes and rotten eggs to baptize these troublemaking engineers. Of course, there are also goblin merchants who sell ammunition beside the furious citizens. As for the guards of the Supreme Court, they are already busy running for their lives and have no time to bother about such small matters. Due to the destruction of the watch house and town security headquarters, there are many suspects who have nowhere to go. If Sulphur Mountain City's prison is still intact, where else can they be transferred to? But due to the aftermath of the prison break incident, a portion of the light criminals were transferred to the watch house. This time, they are completely wiped out and can only be transferred to the Supreme Court. The 4 halls under the Supreme Court have all been mobilized, but they still feel that they are lacking in manpower. Shouts, cries, chases and pleas for mercy, it has completely turned the usually solemn and silent court of justice into a market for bargaining. At the same time, I furrowed my brows and tried my best to ignore the commotion outside but failed in the end. I could only helplessly order the guards to close all the doors and windows tightly and pull down the curtains to give the trial a relatively quiet environment. Yes, the trial. My plan to sneak away overnight, oh no, I meant to go on an emergency mission, was ruthlessly rejected by Eliza from the start. Sulphur Mountain City can do without the Lich Roland. However, after that miracle, the Supreme Judge Womians, who is vaguely known as the Fourth Head, the emperor behind the scenes of Sulphur Mountain City, suddenly disappears. Perhaps the earthquake caused by that would be even more severe than those ambushes. Most importantly, the others were not prepared at all. They did not even have the diplomatic documents prepared. If they went out alone, it would only become a farce. However, if I were to continue staying here as Roland, I would probably be able to count how many bones I have left by tomorrow. I believe that these town security, whose homes have been destroyed here, wouldn't have the patience to listen to my explanation. They would probably tear me apart to make soup out of me. Although I had committed many crimes in my life that others could not say anything about, this time, I was truly innocent. I had only said it casually and waited for the explosion and sparks. Who knew that they would actually make such a thing? Thinking about that 20-meter-tall metal giant, I couldn't help but shiver. A simplified version of the Metal Titan? A monster harvester that is strong enough to crush a legend? It seems that I have accidentally made something incredible. Of course, the other side of Roland No. 2's strength is that I had to pay a huge price to settle it. Thus, the crime of the mastermind, Roland, is even heavier. Thus, I could only helplessly let the town security see Lich Roland riding a bone dragon across half of the city and escape from Sulphur Mountain City. At the very least, before his crimes are cleared, Lich Roland won't return. At this moment, the first trouble that I met is right in front of me. This case has already exceeded the ability of any judge. In the end, I can only do it myself. On the judge's stand in the 3rd Division, I look at the mountain of documents, the innocent face of the defendants and the agitated town security ladies on the plaintiff's stand. Listening to them muttering, "Despicable Roland, wait for me to feed you to the dogs. Lord Womians, please give us the authority to draw our swords and execute him. I will cut him into 13 pieces and bring him back. Momo doesn't care about the legal transaction anymore. Please let Momo lead a team to search his house. There must be a lot of contraband in his house. Then, we will sentence him to life imprisonment. Momo must treat him well, ha 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 ha." Hearing the crazy laughter of the homeless dark elves, I felt a headache coming on. On the side, Prosecutor Catalina was reading out the indictment and the evidence that she had gathered. 4:20 in the afternoon, smoke suddenly rose in the detention house. Then, making use of the chaos, the engineers from the outside met up with those in the detention house. Both parties started the final assembly. Objection? Since the smoke has already risen, how can you determine that it was my client who assembled it? Maybe my client only intends to use the fireworks to barbecue their lunch. The goblin prosecutor Rowe, who is wearing a silver mask, interrupts his colleague's speech and raises an abnormally bizarre opinion. That's right, we only roasted sweet potatoes / smoked fish. The defendant's stand is also in an uproar. Goblins and dwarves love to cause a commotion. There are only piranhas in Sulphur Mountain City's moat. Where did you get the fish to barbecue? Just based on your clumsy fishing skills, don't even think about succeeding in your entire life. Catalina roars in anger. As expected of a huntress of the Amazon tribe, her golden ponytail swings with the wind and her aura is as sharp as a blade, as though she is a valkyrie on a hunt. However, the direction she is concerned about is a little off. No, as long as the method is right, piranhas can be caught. We have Parker's fishing rod now. I finally understand why the Goblin Rowe, who specializes in public prosecutions, insists on defending his fellow tribesmen. This fellow is obviously trying to stir up trouble. Furthermore, he is very familiar with public prosecutions and he knows that it is easy for Prosecutor Caitlin to be led into a dead end. Then, as long as we turn the trial into a farce, this trial will naturally end in one go. In the past, it wouldn't be a big deal to let this farcical trial go, but at this moment, due to certain reasons, I definitely can't let it go. This can't go on. If the goblins are innocent, then wouldn't the Lich Roland be the one to take the blame? Glancing at the town security elves who are so angry that they are gnawing on the table, I make up my mind to make the sinners pay for their crimes. Using the metal plate that was gnawed off as proof, my bones are definitely not as hard as it. Gold coin, may I ask where you were at 4:20 in the afternoon yesterday? Don't lie, you know the consequences of lying in my court. As expected, the moment I ask this, the temporary defense judge who was still speaking passionately just a moment ago becomes speechless in an instant. I rub my forehead helplessly, acting as if I am helpless. In reality, I am already grinning from ear to ear under the mask. Little fellow, I knew that you wouldn't just stay at home obediently. Now, it's your turn to take the blame for me. Gold coin, you actually broke the law despite knowing it. You have thrown the face of the Supreme Court away. Now, shut your mouth obediently and sit in the defendant's stand. Right, apologize to the ladies from the town security first. Let's see what you have done to their family. Hearing that, Gold coin throws down his mask, which represents the removal of his identity as a judge. He jogs over and apologizes with his head lowered. Then, like a primary school student, he sits in the defendant's stand obediently with his kin, completely becoming the defendant. Right, you over there, get me Death Courting Storm. I can guarantee with my knees that that fellow is definitely involved in this as well. You don't know? The Death Courting Storm from the Hall of Magic, that's short. It's Mana Storm. The dwarf's childlike sharp voice echoes from the spectator's stand. Milhouse Manastorm jumps over the fence and walks towards the defendant's stand. I am secretly praising this fellow for being a hoodlum. However, halfway through, I see him turning his head back and calling out, "Since you have committed a crime, you should be punished. What are you all waiting for?" Then, a wave of people comes down. Among them, there are goblins and dwarves, but there are also humans and other races. There are a total of 30 to 40 of them. Probably all the master engineers in Sulphur Mountain City are here. Looks like these master engineers didn't expect that the matter would blow up to such an extent. Now, they are all obediently surrendering themselves. Shaking my head helplessly, I look at the empty defense judge's stand. I can't find a suitable defense judge in such a short period of time, so you all can defend yourselves. Eaglestorm, tell me, even though this matter has nothing to do with you all, why did you all jump out? Those evil engineers are the enemies of nature. Kiki, that unnatural creation that is filled with black cursed objects, artificial giant made of black iron, that twisted existence that revolves with a loud rumble is an existence that blasphemes nature. That fellow is a lumberjack, so he is definitely the enemy of nature. Woof woof, so we, the son of nature, have to purify the cursed land, so we have to get rid of him. While trying my best to bear with the weird accent that comes from his mouth, there are also a few weird beastly roars in between. At first, I even tried to translate it into human language, but looking at the equally confused spectators, I finally couldn't bear it any longer. Speak human language. Otherwise, I will lock you up together with Bayfoam. Heralt. The Drakenbayfing's hobby has already spread across the entire Sulphur Mountain City. His evil act of capturing a drool as a pet is even more shocking. To the victim himself and his fellow drool, that man is the embodiment of fear. He actually forgot that he is a human now and thinks that he is a dog, chasing after his own tail every day. What did that Draken do to him? Dragon of extreme evil, nemesis of drool Bayfoam. Heralt, this is what all the drool of Sulphur Mountain City call him. Even the great drool Eaglestorm, upon hearing this name, instinctively shudders. We saw that iron giant. It was too much of a violation of the teachings of the church. My brother said that we should beat him up. I thought about it and felt that according to the book my grandfather left behind, we should really beat him up. So we beat him up, hee. Looking at the great drool who is laughing foolishly, I am speechless. This time, he is indeed direct enough. But looking at that stupid face, I really want to beat him up. Calm down, gentlemanly. It isn't the first time that these fellows are so unreliable, so don't get angry at them. Cough, alright, next up is the Holy Knight Squadron that suddenly joined the battle. Tim, I can roughly guess what you all did. My lord, please understand, we are just fulfilling the duties and responsibilities of a holy knight. Seeing that the big robot is in the midst of destroying a city wall, you all shouted Holy Light, that evil is worth fighting, for the Holy Light charged at him? Then, along the way, you also destroyed the other 2 city walls and 30-odd houses? Alright, I can understand that their original opportunity to uphold justice was snatched away by the judicial authorities. It is indeed depressing for them to have a rare opportunity to act, so they went all out to cause trouble, but you only said half of it. How can you not tell the truth about how you and Drool got into a fight? Do you think that I don't know about the grudge between you and Eaglestorm after the streaking incident? Later on, remember to send the repair bill to Old Bill. I hope that his stomach has recovered. The last time he vomited blood it was really scary. This time, increase the bill by 3 times and punish him as hard as you can. Ignoring Tim, whose face looks as if the sky has fallen, I turn my gaze towards a bunch of nervous youngsters. Lucas, you just changed your job from a holy knight to a justice knight. Why did you bring the other students of Nanxiang to cause trouble? Furthermore, you purposely picked on your former colleagues. Don't you know that if a law enforcer knowingly breaks the law, His punishment will be even more severe? I have high hopes for this youngster. I am indeed very curious. Why did it turn into a fight between a holy knight and a justice knight even though we are all here to help? If I remember correctly, Lucas and that Tim should have a good relationship. I don't have anything against Big Brother Tim. Big Brother has always been taking care of us. However, other than Big Brother's 3rd Brigade, the Holy Church's 1st Brigade actually came as well. They actually wanted to play the hero and snatch the girl. So, I couldn't hold it in. The others are confused, but I instantly understand. The 1st Brigade of every region of the Holy Church is also known as the Ceremonial Brigade. Rather than saying that they are a holy knight in battle, it would be better to say that they are the Handsome Knight Brigade that specializes in etiquette and diplomacy. The 1st Brigade only has one mission, and that is to ask for donations from the local nobles and wealthy merchants. As for the sentimental ladies, they are usually more willing to spend money, so every member of the 1st Brigade is carefully selected. The requirement is that they must be beautiful and skilled in diplomacy. If they can accidentally make the noble ladies happy, it would be even better if they donate more. So, when the other brigades are busy fighting against evil, the 1st Brigade is busy with ball parties and dealing with the noble ladies. When the other brigades are training under the scorching sun, the 1st Brigade is doing group face masks in a secret room. Furthermore, in order to look good, the church pays for the maintenance of the 1st Brigade's war horses and armor. This difference in treatment naturally makes the 1st Brigade look bad in the eyes of the other holy knight. But I have to say, face masks are too expensive. It can't be reimbursed. It's hard to maintain one's demeanor while attending ball parties and drinking till the point of vomiting. Do you bastards think that all the noble ladies are as beautiful as flowers? Actually, most of them are like pigs. No matter how disgusting those greasy pig hands are, you have to bear with it. If you accidentally chop them off, it would become a diplomatic incident. Most importantly, don't think that there are always women around. In reality, in order to attract the noble ladies to donate, the 1st Brigade doesn't allow anyone to fall in love at all. Also, they have to memorize poems all day, practice their skills to act cool, and try their best to act like a Casanova. Even if they meet a good woman, they can only look at her and not touch her. This kind of feeling is even worse than not being able to pursue her. Alright, I didn't shout out the above roars. But it seems that I accidentally revealed some of my dark history. I did go to the 1st Brigade when I was a night squire. After that, I was in the main battle force. But it took me a year to change those weird habits. Don't blame this little brother, we understand. The 1st Brigade Captain Muin, who is rubbing his hands, is a golden-haired handsome man. Not only that, he even instinctively flings his hair and winks at the side. While the men are disgusted, there are also women who exclaim, "So handsome." Yet, I look at him with a sympathetic gaze. 59 style flick head movement, 56 style flirting eyes. Looks like the church hasn't changed much after all these years. Looking at this proficiency, it should be a master-level flirting eyes. In order to maintain this state, he has to practice at least 300 times a day. He probably can't even speak normally anymore. He also habitually winks at men. Thus, I say to Lucas in a deep voice, "Apologize to Captain Muin. Now, immediately. There's no need, little brother. We are all brothers of the Order faction." As Muin says those words, his gaze is still drifting, as though he is looking for a target among the audience. Then, he habitually flashes his flirting eyes all over the place. As a senior and an experienced person, I know that this is a honed hunting instinct. But in the eyes of the young and energetic Lucas, it is a sign of disdain. I definitely won't apologize. Even if I can't be a justice knight, I won't be a human anymore. I will become a black knight in the undead district. It wasn't easy for him to find a new faith, only to realize that he still has to lower his head to his old enemy. Unable to bear the harsh reality, he ran away in tears. However, he must have gotten something wrong. The undead district only has a death knight, there isn't a dark knight. Alright, back to the main topic. At this moment, the matter is already very clear. First, the engineers created a gigantic robot. Then, the town security came to enforce the law, but they were suppressed by the mechanical giant with their huge size advantage. Then, the Drool entered the chaotic battle. Then, the Holy Knight came to eradicate the evil. At the same time, Tim took the opportunity to settle old scores with Eaglestorm, causing the Drool and the Holy Knight to fight. Then, thinking that the first big team that came to rescue was taking the opportunity to flirt with girls, the Justice Knight trainee of Nanxiang made use of the chaos to take revenge. It really is a mess. In the end, no one bothered about the robot and everyone fought on their own. This is obviously using this opportunity to settle personal grudges. If we really want to punish them, a few thousand people would have to be locked up in one go. Furthermore, our jail and detention center are still in a state of ruins. Furthermore, no one died this time. This is really an accident. Thus, I made up my mind and knocked down the gavel. Court will be temporarily adjourned. All defendants will be temporarily released. Without the approval of the Supreme Court, the suspects are not allowed to leave Sulphur Mountain City. The compensation for the damages will be split equally by the parties involved in the fight. At the same time, the various departments of the judicial system will hasten the repair work of the detention center and jail. Once we find the culprit, Roland, we will hold the court again. Alright, in the end, it became Roland's fault. While the indignant town security was itching to give it a try, obviously intending to capture Roland personally. Looks like Roland won't be coming back. Eliza, do you think Rosie sounds better or Robe sounds better? Alright, after the incident yesterday, she has been ignoring me ever since. However, this trial made me determined. If I'm not around, this bunch of fellows will flip the heavens. Then, the members of the diplomatic group this time should be decided. Bring this bunch of buffoons along and fix that Roland number 2 as well. Let's completely flip the Underground Alliance upside down. Chapter 35. The Underground City, Kulanstanbul, could be considered the closest underground city to Sulphur Mountain City. Although it wasn't a necessary route to other underground cities, many merchants would choose to pass through here to replenish their food and water, or to purchase some minerals, gems, slaves, and other specialties. More than 70% of the residents in this city are Grey Dwarves and Underground Beastmen. The Underground Beastmen are mainly the pig tribe of the original city, Lord HNG. The land here is barren, and after using their army to rob merchants, this group of greedy pigs became even more infamous. Now, other than relying on the resources to develop their mining industry and slave labor trade, they seem to have no other choice. When the news of City Lord HNG's death spread, as expected, the entire Kalan city fell into chaos. There is a reason why the underground city is viewed as a land of chaos by the entire Order faction. At least in most of the underground cities, they believe in the most primitive law of nature, the survival of the fittest. The city lord and the nobles in the city are the ones with the biggest fists. Their outstanding reproductive ability allowed the pig tribe to have a large population. In the past, even during the transfer of power, they were able to maintain relative stability within the tribe. But this time, HNG was ravaged by the division of Sulphur Mountain City's resources. His death was too sudden, and he even brought along the number 1 elite Blackwater army of the tribe. Thus, the original successor, HNG's son, didn't have enough strength, and the one who could become the next city lord began to stir. Or rather, using the word stir to describe these pigheads was too lenient. On the afternoon of the news, they lost their restraints and the civil war began. The second largest tribe, Greywood Lizard Beastmen and Grey Dwarves, allied together to rise to power. Along with the commoners who couldn't survive and the slave miners who wanted to escape. Chaos is contagious. War broke out all over the continent, and Kalan City's population of more than 700,000 was reduced by a tenth. Alright, when Lilith led her team to Kalan City, they saw such a tragic scene. If she had arrived 2 days later, Kalan City's population would have been reduced by at least half. Of course, when the situation was settled and the victor rose to power, Kalan City would quickly produce a new city lord and nobles, entering the next round of stability. As for the slaves and commoners who died in the chaos, no one cared. The dungeon made up of the exiled was such a world. The one with the biggest fist would take all, and the weak would die, but looking at the smoke rising from the city, looking at the beastmen dressed in guards and military uniforms wantonly killing the civilians they were supposed to be protecting, Lilith and the other enforcers of Sulphur Mountain City were enraged. Hence, Lilith directly activated the remnant page clone of the Divine Artifact Original Codex, allowing the Divine Artifact of Law to carry out great judgment on the entire city. Of course, it wouldn't be possible to execute a city-wide trial like what I did last time. However, this God Equipment fragment was still a God Equipment, and it was still terrifyingly powerful. Primordial Codex Fragment, Divine Equipment, Faith in Law, 367/999. Every 1,000 people's faith will increase by 1 point per week. Maximum increment is 50 points per month. When the accumulated points are full, the remnant page of the main body will be automatically copied. Every once in a while, when the God Equipment Primordial Codex had gathered enough faith in law, it would produce a remnant page. It was a part of the God Equipment Primordial Codex of Law, an extension of its will and power. There is a small line of words on the remnant page. The Womians never sleeps, his invisible eyes are always watching you. Effect 1. Land of Law, passive. After he is placed in the center of the city will soon become a land of law. Within the area he is in, the enforcers can learn to wield the power of law. Effect 2. Great Judgment, active, requires 100 points of faith in law at one go, and it will consume 1 point every minute thereafter. When the user activates it, everyone in the city will be executed with the judgment spell equivalent to that of a legend-ranked adjudicator, judging the crimes committed in the past 3 hours. If guilty, one will suffer from restriction of freedom, invisible shackles, weapon lock, and other negative effects. In Great Judgment, the effects of all enforcers' law incantations will be doubled, and their rank will temporarily increase by 1. Prerequisite: the city's laws are chaotic, villains are running amok, and the city is about to be destroyed. Effect 3. Unknown. A God Equipment is indeed a God Equipment. As long as it is used, it can change the direction of a war. There are many God Equipment that have changed history, even if the remnant page of the Codex is just a replica. When Great Judgment is activated, all of the villains are judged, and a large number of negative effects are hung on them. As for the enforcers, they rise by 1 rank. For a gold rank like Lilith to rise by 1 rank, she becomes a legend rank. This time, in anticipation of the chaos in Chrome City, her Hall of Law, which has the nickname of Logistics Department, is obviously lacking in fighting power. In order to stabilize the situation, I directly transferred the strongest Hall of Law over. The Hall of Law is filled with old fellows who specialize in law. Usually, they are also the judges of the Supreme Court. Most of them have advanced jobs in law. Then, the weakest among them is a gold rank. This time, almost all of the Hall of Law is mobilized. That is more than 200 gold rank and 6 legend rank. That is to say, within 5 hours of Great Judgment, there will be more than 200 legend rank and 6 human saints. It is a pity. If the head of the Hall of Law, Kale, wasn't recuperating at home, if he were to advance from the human saint by another rank, he would be a myth rank that is just a step away from semi-god. It would be beneficial for him to advance in the future. But now there are more than 200 legend rank and 6 human saints. This is already ridiculous. The original city Lord HNG was only at the pinnacle of legend rank. What happens next is simple. Within 5 hours of the faith of law being consumed, all of the villains and murderers are cleaned up. When the red light of sin on their body reaches a certain level, it means that their crime is sufficient to be sentenced to death. Faced with all kinds of ugly crimes, the experts of the Hall of Law don't know what forgiveness is. Thus, great judgment becomes a great execution. After the incident, the stench of blood in the entire Chrome Mountain City lingers for 10 days. After being saved from the calamity, the new conquerors are treated as saviors by most of the citizens of Chrome City. Seizing the opportunity of the unstable hearts of the citizens after the battle, the Inquisitors start to work hard to spread law and order. The depleted God equipment pages are also restored by the faith of the citizens who were saved. Even if it is used again, it will be at least 3 months later. This battle is fated to shock the entire underground world. Its influence far surpasses the setbacks of the 2 underground autarchs. After all, back then, the 2 autarchs were facing powerful semi-gods, and the forbidden spell that judged all the sinners and annihilated the invading army could also be explained as a long-prepared forbidden spell trap. On the other hand, the sudden appearance of the powerful army, the more than 200 legends and 6 human saints, couldn't be explained as having been prepared beforehand. Instead, it was sufficient to show how powerful and strange this new power of law was. I can already imagine what will happen next. Very quickly, the information about the power of law and the law job will spread throughout the entire underground world. Perhaps the Justice Knight created by my power of law might not be able to take risks like the Holy Knight, able to play a huge role in military formations. However, as the protectors of order and law, when facing villains and protecting the citizens in the city, they will be able to easily display their fighting prowess by several folds. My Inquisitors don't need to go around preaching like a priest, continuously praising the greatness of the holy light and the holiness of the gods of order. They only need to spread the ancient books of law and analyze the various cases, creating simple courts one after another so that sinners will be punished and the grievances of the weak will be upheld. Then, those who benefit from it and those ordinary people who obtain a comfortable life will naturally believe in the law and provide it with the power of faith. My law incantationers will study the combination of law and the power of law, continuously coming up with new law incantations, allowing the power of law and the law job to become even stronger. Power of law? A purely defensive and targeted power. Very quickly, those underground city lords will come to such a conclusion and be tempted. After all, who doesn't want their own territory to be more peaceful and prosperous? Mass production of public security officers who use the power of law to support the security of their own territory. Just thinking about it is a matter that benefits them greatly. Even if the experts of law that are groomed in this way won't fight for them, if they join the invading army and commit war crimes, they will automatically lose their identity as inquisitors and lose the power of law. They can still transfer experts who are originally used for security to fight in wars. Letting these experts of law guard the city, law job is allowed to participate in the defense of the city. Wouldn't it be able to increase their overall fighting prowess? The underground world's pursuit of power is endless. Very quickly, after coming to a conclusion, they will send people to learn, seek, and even steal. As for me, not only do I intend to give away the ancient books of law and cultivation techniques for free, I will even choose a relatively friendly city to give away the remnant pages of the God equipment. Whoever wants it can take it. Let me make it clear first, this is a type of defensive power of order that targets sinners. In other words, if the opponent isn't a sinner or their crimes aren't severe, it is far from being comparable to the almighty holy light. Of course, these underground city lords wouldn't give up just because of my warning. Instead, they would go crazy over the limited number of slots for the God equipment. I look forward to the day when they, who have committed many crimes, are sent to the guillotine by their own citizens. Will they remember the words I said when I gave them the power of law? If everything goes smoothly, very quickly, the power of law will spread to every corner of the underground world. Maybe, in a short period of time, 10 to 20 years, there won't be any visible changes. But when the new generation that trains in the power of law rises up, the entire underground world might gradually change. The underground world isn't the end of the power of law. The Holy Church, who has long obtained the books from me, should have already experimented on the surface and obtained good results. They, who yearn for order, will be even more obsessed with the advantages of the power of law in terms of security and judgment. Perhaps, 30 to 40 years later, every city will have a new job that specializes in law. This is my hope, and also the most important part of my plan. Now, this is just the beginning of letting the seeds scatter with the wind. I am not anxious, what I have is patience. Maybe someone will see through my plot. Oh no, since everything is laid out under the sun, it is more appropriate to call it an open plot. Even if they see through my open plot, the huge benefits will make them swallow this sugar-coated poison. Then, as the power of law takes root and grows, the invisible sword of judgment will hang over the head of the next underground city lord. But the current me doesn't have the time to consider such things. It was only yesterday that I brought the envoy group and the engineering team to Kalen City. Looking at the ruins, the faces of the citizens are still filled with smiles and hope for the future. Without a doubt, this means that our takeover has won the hearts of the citizens. Thus, even though I trusted her from the start, at this moment, I am even more satisfied with Lilith. In just a few short days, she reorganized the administrative and judicial structures, temporarily holding the authority of the city lord in her hands. Once it is stabilized, she will hand it over to the soon-to-be-established city parliament. As for the judicial power? Of course, it will be directly held in the hands of Sulphur Mountain City's Supreme Court, Kalen Branch, turning this city into a land of law. As expected, if one doesn't consider some personal issues, she is one of the rare, normal people in the upper echelons of the judicial system. Furthermore, she is the logistics manager of the entire judicial system. Her administrative ability is definitely one of the best. I will have to trouble you to temporarily take over the position of the city lord before the election of the council is completed. Then, are you interested in becoming the head of the branch? The moment I said these words, the faces of the colleagues beside her turned steely. They shake their heads furiously at me behind her back. They aren't afraid that the young Lilith will overtake them, but, Lord, please understand. If I were to become the head of the branch here, I'm afraid that the Sulphur Mountain City headquarters would have problems instead. After all, the other lords are all. I don't need to say the rest. As an in-name disciple of the Saint Marguerite, even if Kale doesn't recuperate, he would still be engrossed in the scrolls, combining laws to research new law incantations. Kevin's presence is too low and his leadership ability is negligible. As for the last one, the head of the 4 Heavenly Kings Law Enforcement Hall, Steelguard. Looking around, I don't see anyone called Steelguard here, only a pervert who is currently exchanging his experience of streaking with Eaglestorm. Yes, just like how you can't leave Lord Silver Rose, the 4 halls and 1 court can't leave me for the time being. When saying these words, Lilith is rather proud. Obviously, she treats her previous job as the pride of her life. Indeed, if Elise is my personal logistics manager and external conscience, constantly reminding me not to go overboard, then Lilith is the logistics manager and only conscience of the entire Sulphur Mountain City 4 halls and 1 court, ensuring the stable operation of the massive system. If she isn't around, I'm afraid that there will be a huge problem. Then transfer Kevin over. Find him an assistant in the Hall of Law to help him deal with the administrative affairs. Are the envoys from Kaja and Ainsterna here? Kaja's envoy is already here. Ainsterna's envoy will probably arrive in a few days. I nod my head in satisfaction. This is the reason why I must stay in Chrome City. Since I have already offended 2 underground autarchs, then, naturally, I have to greet the other 2 autarchs. As expected, they decisively extended their hand of friendship. Joining the Underground Alliance naturally requires an invitation letter. Wouldn't it be lowering my status if I came knocking on their door? Now, those envoys definitely have the invitation letter I want. Just like the blood feud between the surface elves and the beastmen, the dark elves and the underground beastmen are naturally at odds. The devil's agent and the demon's agent are destined to be enemies. The relationship between the beastman's sovereign show, Kaja and Ainsterna, is destined to be bad. Molly is an unreliable two-faced person. Even if the enemy of an enemy isn't a friend, there is a possibility of them becoming allies. But, if one were to trust the dark elves who view betrayal and murder as their virtue and really treat the cunning and evil devil as an ally, then it would be equivalent to putting a noose around one's neck and giving the noose to the other party. None of the underground autarchs are easy to deal with. Has the news of the Eternal Night Scepter's appearance spread? As expected, I received an affirmative answer from the other party. Thus, I turned my head to look at the plaza. There, 16 giant goblin mechs are currently nervously being assembled. The engineers from Sulphur Mountain City are working hard to rush the work. Chrome City's outstanding mining industry and Grey Dwarf blacksmiths will become the strong support of these engineers. At least, due to the rich mineral reserves of this city, the metal quality of these big fellows is far better than the original, making them much sturdier and more durable. In the underground world, no one listens to the words of the weak. If the weak have a treasure and no one snatches it, then it can only mean that the treasure is fake. Then, if we want to put on a show, then let's go all the way. Before the envoy from Ainsterna arrives, let's finish building our treasure protection team. Right, is this toy really safe? This is the 3rd time you have asked me today. Rose said that he has already gone through 17 revisions on the blueprint and it is definitely safe. In theory. Are you talking about it in theory again? I was afraid that they would revise it too much. They are always dissatisfied with the blueprint and would try to incorporate their own unique skills and secret arts into the product to claim that it is perfect. Last time, there was a goblin who revised his shaver and blew up the barbershop. 2 days ago, I asked those bastards who caused trouble once more and found out about a blind spot that they had neglected. Back then, although they were all surrounding the giant mech, in reality, they were all fighting on their own. No one bothered with that giant mech anymore. Then, how did it get destroyed? I understand. I will immediately get Roe and Mir to revise it for the 18th time. That's right, that large machine wasn't destroyed. Instead, it had self-destructed just as I had expected. Speaking of which, I feel that those bastards who were punished deserved it more and more. You actually forgot your original goal in the middle of the fight, right? Can you get them to change their names? I'm really panicking with this name. Lined up in front of me are Roland number 3, Roland number 4, all the way to Roland number 18. These Rolands that could explode at any moment, how can I, Lich Roland, not be panicked? About that, I have mentioned it a few times, but the goblins and dwarves insisted on using the inventor's name, saying that it is a tradition. Those pilots are also adamant about it and it is impossible to change it. Pilots? Those pilots selected from the Dark Elves? They don't have any reason to insist on it. Don't they hate Lich Roland? They do hate him. But they say that sitting in Roland is like sitting in the body of their enemy. Looking at the name Roland painted in pink, they think of their dowry and treasures that were destroyed twice, giving them endless motivation. They will never forget their vow to catch that bastard, no matter where he escapes to, no matter what he disguises himself as. Lord, why are you squatting down? Are you uncomfortable? No, I just feel that we need to reduce our size. They are so tall, they probably can't see us clearly. Chapter 36. The first thing that starts is a bud. As the rain falls, the silver bud starts to grow. Its branches and leaves start to spread and the silver leaves start to unfurl, blooming towards the sky. Then, the flower bud starts to wake up. She starts to stretch her body. Pieces of gauze start to spread out, turning into pieces of beautiful petals. The long growth period is completed in a few seconds. Unfortunately, what is blooming is not a real rose, but an ice rose on the girl's fingertips. Ice style, rose garden. She gently crushed the branches of the rose, letting the leaves and petals go with the wind. Under the calm words, there was a naked killing intent. Behind Elisa was a garden of silver roses, and a few seconds ago, it was an empty space without a single soul. Every rose is exquisite and perfect. Every root, every leaf is slightly trembling and breathing, as if they are really alive. Just the silver ice material, without a doubt, shows that this is the product of magic. Then, the wind starts to blow. No, the air is still calm. It's just that the roses look like they are being blown by the wind. Countless rose petals fly with the wind and return to the wind, turning into sharp blades that move with the wind. Killing intent, dancing with the rose. That seemingly beautiful scene was actually a deadly trap. There was no wind at all, and those rose petals that seemed to move with the wind were, in fact, blades of frost controlled by mages. Every ice rose petal looks soft, but it is actually extremely sharp. Its sharpness can cut through heavy armor. All of the ice blades are pointed at one target. That is a fiery red giant egg. Countless ice petals attack this giant egg, but unfortunately, the moment they get close to the egg, they are instantly vaporized. But Eliza does not give up. With a flick of her finger, the other 3 roses bloom in the air. Then, they crazily absorb ice magic to strengthen themselves. The petals start to condense magic crystals, and the branches with ice crystals start to mature and grow. It seems that she is preparing to gather magic to make it big. She was forced to use her little nirvana so quickly. Your Eliza is really not simple. Compared to the immature Anne, she is simply overwhelming. Did you teach her this? How beautiful. I didn't expect you to have such a trick up your sleeve. However, if I'm not wrong, her killing intent is serious? Do you really want to kill Anne? With Little Red's eyesight, how could she be mistaken? She was only saying that to embarrass me. I shook my head. I knew what she meant. How could my ice magic be so precise? No. You know that my understanding of magic is very simple and crude. Gather your magic power to destroy it. If you can't destroy it, extract more magic power to destroy it. If you still can't destroy it, blast its outer shell a few more times, then concentrate your firepower to destroy its core. To be honest, your declaration back then left Marguerite and I speechless. Your understanding of mana stopped at the level of a cannon, your understanding of elemental mana stopped at the level of a cannon, your understanding of elemental mana stopped at the level of different colors, and your control of elemental mana was so crude and bold, completely ignoring the nature and attributes of elemental mana. I really can't understand how you became a semi-god necromancer. With the system's cheat, as long as my power is up to the mark, realms aren't a problem. Alright, I won't say such a big truth. People's talents tend to have preferences. My outstanding talent in the power of order, holy light and law are both lower concepts of the power of order, and my talent in swordsmanship allowed me to easily become an ace holy knight. After that, when I changed to become a dark mage, I wasn't able to learn dark magic well. However, necromancy is a lower concept of the power of chaos, yet I was able to learn it well. This means that my talent in the power of chaos isn't bad, which is already hard to come by. As for elemental magic that requires meticulous control, is there anything wrong with concentrating magic power to blast it? The simpler it is, the purer and more powerful it is. Back then, the Ice Aeon that I invented is a powerful forbidden spell that left its mark in history. Although its principle is still to concentrate magic power to blast it, the amount of magic power used is a little ridiculous. Elemental magic originated from the ancient elemental gods. Logically speaking, it should belong to the Chaos faction. However, due to its outstanding destructive power and low learning requirements, it has already become one of the mainstream magic of the two factions. The common people's understanding of elemental magic is going astray. Alright, don't look at me like that. I know that I suck in this aspect. You are a master of wind and fire, a publicly acknowledged expert of fire. Don't bully a little ice apprentice like me. No, you don't have to belittle yourself. Although your minor magic is terrible, due to the purity of your magic power and the large amount of reserves, major forbidden spells are indeed terrifying. However, your disciple is obviously walking the opposite path from you. Her magic control is so high that she can carve leaf patterns on an ice rose. The idea of the rose blade is also not bad, but being too exquisite makes it easy to break. It seems that she has gone overboard. After all, she is a fire element half-demon. Even though she has studied ice magic for close to 100 years, the amount of ice magic she has accumulated is still limited. You should know that the ice incantations I have here are major magic spells. Although they aren't difficult to grasp, the requirements on the amount of magic power required is especially high. Since she isn't able to learn high-level and forbidden spells, she has to work hard on minor ice modeling spells that I am not proficient in. However, from the looks of it, the effects aren't bad. While chatting with Little Red from time to time, we are also keeping our guard up. We are prepared to make a move at any time to prevent any accidents from happening to the two of us. Originally, and had intended to go out to accumulate battle experience. After knowing that Eliza is also a gold pinnacle mage, and challenged her. The scene in front of us is also within her expectations. Although both of them are at gold pinnacle, the 100 years of experience and accumulation allows Eliza to have an overwhelming advantage. Very quickly, she forced and into a little nirvana state where she has no choice but to hide. With a snap of her fingers, 3 silver roses that have accumulated a sufficient amount of magic power explode. The fragments are as sharp as the edge of a blade, spinning as they shoot towards the giant egg. Ao ao ao! Without waiting for the ice shards to strike, following a series of howls, the giant flaming egg directly dispersed. The scattered flames first turned into rings of fire that scattered in all directions. Then, at the same time, they darted into the sky and turned into a 3-meter-wide firebird. Little Nirvana absorbs energy and accumulates it. After accumulating energy to the maximum, it explodes with a phoenix slash. This is Adam's standard shameless tactic. The temperature of Anne's body in the form of a firebird can easily melt ice. It is too obvious that the elements are mutually exclusive. Looks like your disciple Eliza is going to lose. However, I just smile. I won't lose. Why don't we bet on something? For example, that set of ruby protection jewelry in your treasury? Little Red smiles. I'm not betting. After so many years, have you ever lost a bet with stakes? I tried my best to recall, but I really haven't lost much before. Without a 100% chance of winning, I naturally wouldn't bet. Even if I am forced into the game, I will definitely cheat. Even if I really lose, I will probably go back on my word. Little Red resolves not to bet. However, the scene in front of her makes her feel a little regretful. The firebird flew to the highest point, released a loud screech, and then began to dive down to attack. At the same time, Elisa didn't stop. However, in front of the high-temperature firebird, countless ice spikes, ice spears, and icicles turned into water in the raging flames before they could even touch it. Facing the danger in front of her, Eliza is as calm as usual. She twirls her hands in the air, and the water vapor that she had prepared earlier instantly condenses. Countless ice threads tightly bind the firebird. You can't bind Anne. Following Anne's declaration and exertion of strength, more and more ice threads are melted. Eliza continuously weaves new ice threads to strengthen the seal on the firebird. At this moment, it has reached the crucial moment of the contest of strength. This is a symphony of fire and ice, a dance between two young girls. When Eliza successfully weaves a huge net and completely seals, and within, another familiar cry of a phoenix echoes. The flames scatter in all directions before gathering back into a firebird that dives down once again. Second nirvana? Little Anne is a quick learner. This time, the invisible net of water vapor had been used up, and Eliza had no way to stop it. Since the interception spell was ineffective, Eliza had nowhere to retreat to when faced with and who was charging at her at high speed. The mage has been closed in by the warrior. Eliza has lost. I should have bet with you. Are you bluffing again? No, if you bet with me this time, you'll definitely lose. Little Red still wanted to ask something, but the next scene caused her to cry out in alarm. Facing the swooping firebird, Eliza actually took a deep breath and spread her arms, ready to reach out to catch it. That firebird's attack is the blessing of the phoenix. She's looking for death. Little Red was about to enter the arena to end this duel, but I pulled her back. Don't underestimate Eliza. ZZT 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 ZZT. That was the sound of meat being cooked on a metal plate. Both of her hands were probably cooked. However, Eliza seemed to be oblivious to it. She threw away her staff, sucked in her stomach and puffed out her chest. Retracting her right arm, she threw a punch. Dang. When this punch landed, the sound of an iron hammer striking a bell was actually heard. In the midst of the shaking, the firebird's elemental shell scattered, revealing the red-haired girl who turned her head around. What followed after was a one-sided crushing mount entanglement, standing throw, arm-hugging leg hook, metal plate throw, neck twisting, hell's reincarnation. Aren't these your weird fighting techniques? Please call him mage protection technique. This is a precious fighting technique from another world. Calling it a wrestling technique isn't wrong either. At this moment, Anne's arms were already pinned down by a cross, so she could only slap the ground and beg for mercy. The outcome has been decided, Eliza won. So that's how it is, a half-demon? What a terrifying brute force. Yeah, this brute force is enough to wrestle with a semi-dragon. You haven't seen her clean before. With just a light lift, she can lift the entire sofa, and then calmly take away the money hidden underneath as the wages she owes. Alright, it seems like she accidentally self-destructed something again. But at this moment, this isn't the main point. She still hasn't had the chance to show off her combination of steel wire and ice wire in close combat. Did you forget that she is also a fire attribute half-demon? Her resistance to fire damage is shockingly high. Coupled with the hostile ice magic and outstanding close combat ability, she is simply Anne's natural enemy. You seem to be very proud? Of course I'm proud. My disciple defeated Adam's disciple. Although she did have the advantage of the element restriction, doesn't this mean that my teaching ability is better than Adam's? She is the disciple of you and Marguerite. Finally, Lilith, who had been watching the entire battle from the side, couldn't stand it anymore and interrupted. Lady Rose's messenger has been waiting for 2 days. May I know when Lord will be meeting her? There's no hurry. Dark elves are all lowly wretches. Even if you talk to them nicely, they won't listen. Let her go for 2 days first. Let her understand her situation first. Hearing this, even though it is obvious that she is slandering their own race, Diana and Yawn, who were on the same side as Lilith, nodded their heads furiously. I heard that the one who came is the matriarch of a mid-tier family, so she won't interact obediently. In my opinion, we have to let her go for half a month first. This isn't the first time I have come into contact with dark elf nobles, and I am quite experienced. If these female nobles are Rose's priestess, it will be even more difficult to deal with. In the eyes of Priestess Rose and the Dark Elf Matriarch, males of all races can only be divided into 2 types: domestic slaves with a master and wild slaves without a master. I don't even need to meet her to know that the ambassador will speak in a tone of charity. choking me to death the moment she opens her mouth. Males, may the light shine upon your head. This is the most vicious curse of the Dark Elves. Our goddess has decreed that you must, basically, negotiating with the Dark Elves often becomes a one-sided order from them. It's fine if you agree to it, but if you don't, they will start a war. 99% of the time, this weird diplomatic method doesn't work. However, the Dark Elves don't need diplomatic methods. Most of the time, they will just attack you directly. If they can negotiate with you, it means that they have already promised you their strength. At the very least, it isn't worth it to fight. I can guarantee that even now, the Dark Elves still think that we owe them a favor. Why? Back then, when the 2 underground autarchs attacked us, they didn't hit us while we were down or backstab us. In the Dark Elves' strange values, not taking advantage of us is already a great act of kindness. Right now, it is more like a test. If the arrogant messenger still received preferential treatment, it naturally means that you are begging them again. Then, even more terrible conditions will come. Thus, negotiating with the Dark Elves requires a lot of time and patience. Whoever takes the initiative to negotiate first will be at a disadvantage right from the start. However, if we are comparing patience, I am very patient. It would be best to wait for the last messenger of the underground autarchs to arrive so that we can negotiate together. At this moment, on the other side of the empty space, a group of Dark Elf Justice Knight runs past. They are wearing only a thin layer of clothing and barefoot. Yet, they are carrying their own heavy plate armor on their back. Shouting a ferocious chant, they pass by us. Doesn't the scene in front of us seem a little familiar? Back then, this is how I punished Diana. Looking at my questioning gaze, Diana says embarrassedly. That punishment was tough, but after reaching my limit, I realized that my strength had a breakthrough. This kind of barefoot marching is very effective in training one's willpower and squeezing out the limits of one's stamina. Thus, I popularized this training method in the team. 2 of my comrades who were stuck at the pinnacle of silver rank broke through to gold rank after a bath. There seems to be some gratitude in those beautiful eyes. However, I don't feel any joy. Instead, I ask worriedly, "I'm not asking about that. Your slogan that 1-2-1-2 train hard, 3-4-3 capture Roland, 5-6-5-6 stew the Lich, 7-8-7-8-7 save the dowry. That was made up by the little lass Momo to remind us to pay attention to the target in front of us. Forget about the others, but dowry? Are you in such a hurry to get married? Then why did you reject the pursuit of the knight lad in the city? Oh, you misunderstood. The dowry here is our customary term. You see, we Dark Elves don't have the same concept of marriage as other races. We all want to find a partner. Don't we all marry a man? In our custom, dowry is equivalent to money to marry a man. It is equivalent to your so-called hidden wealth." Speechless, I shake my head. I respect the customs of other races, so I will reluctantly accept it. However, isn't Roland? Before they can finish their words, the faces of the 2 Dark Elf team leaders turn cold twice. Our home, the salary and belongings that we saved up with much difficulty. Lord, this is the only thing we can't give up on. We have to give our sisters an explanation. Alright, there's no need to say anything else. Looks like I am definitely going to be the scapegoat. Chapter 37. The Shilua Empire is made up of the Shilua Swamp, the great wastelands of Kadia, and the Baikal Highlands. The terrain is complex, making it easy to defend and hard to attack. Actually, to put it more accurately, it is a place where the living can't live. The Death Swamp, the uninhabited desert, and the extreme cold highlands. The 3 forbidden areas of life form the living's hell and the undead's paradise. However, not many people know that in this world of magic, the harsh natural environment isn't invincible. In the depths of the Great Swamp, there is an area where it is like spring all year round. The vegetation is lush and the scenery is picturesque. That is the capital of the Shilua Empire, Shilua, and the Jela administrative district around it. Even though this is a miraculous territory, it requires a large amount of time and effort. The soul towers in the border areas are always shining with the radiance of soul and arcane magic. The flood of white bones that represented death in the past is now the countless undead laborers who work hard to cultivate the land. As long as it is an intelligent life form, even the high-level undead who loathe the living would still maintain their sense of beauty. No one likes their home to be a pile of ruins and dirty swamp. The undying undead never lack time and labor. While the people of the world still think that this is a hell, quietly this place has gradually changed. The capital of the Shilua Empire, Shilua, has close to 1 million intelligent undead who are silver rank and above. The living who are slaves are 20 million, and the number of low-level, low-intelligence undead is simply uncountable. The scenery in the city is beautiful, and the infrastructure is complete. The underground network and the transportation network made up of airships are abnormally developed. If one only looks at the scale and design of the city, the luxurious Ottoman Empire can't even compare to half of Shilua. One of the sculptures on the main road might be an heirloom of some kingdom that has been passed down for thousands of years. This is the foundation of the undead empire that has destroyed countless kingdoms. In a luxurious mansion in Siro City, the 7th Senator of the Empire, Spider Marquis Reinhardt, was dealing with government affairs. As one of the strongest Death Knight in the Empire, he was also the nominal commander and instructor of the Death Knight group. However, in the eyes of the people of the Empire, he always wore the loose clothes of a scholar, presenting himself as a cultured and refined scholar. But those who truly understood him would know that he was a ferocious beast that couldn't be tamed the moment he entered the battlefield. He once disobeyed orders from his superiors and fought for 17 days and nights to destroy an entire kingdom in one fell swoop. The so-called recorder of history and refined scholar general were probably nothing more than an amateur hobby and disguise on the battlefield. However, right now, the eternal captain of Emperor Yongye, the chariot of death that would go mad the moment he boarded the chariot of death, was deep in thought over the 2 pieces of intelligence in his own mansion. His handsome face was ashen, as if he had run into a great conundrum. "Lionheart, why do you look so bitter? Those long ears in the west are starting to cause trouble again? Or did the barbarians from the north come down the mountain? If there are such interesting matters, then let me share your worries." A cold and lazy female voice sounded from outside the door. Even though it was a question, there was a strange teasing and joy in her words, as though she was excited about the rise of war. "Lord Grey. Sin, there is no war, so don't try to start one. I have said it many times, the wariness of the living towards us has reached a critical point. To the current empire, a meaningless war isn't a good thing." "TSK, then why did you call me here today? You know that I am only interested in war. Could it be that the group of liches from the parliament are too bored to find something to do? Let's talk about the diplomatic issue from the last time. Go and find the other senators. I, the 4th senator, the Empire's Duke, Bone Dragon Queen Grey. Sin, have no interest in those things. Just by looking at her appearance, she is a cold and tall female elf. Her long silver hair reaches her waist, and her pale white skin gives off a strange sense of beauty. Her red, black and gray long dress drags on the ground. The part of her appearance that leaves the deepest impression is her eyes. Those black and white pupils are like black holes that are sucking in light. It seems like there is something, but at the same time it seems like there is nothing at all. The Shilua Empire system is probably the strangest in the entire world. It is an empire, but it doesn't have an emperor. The real power lies in the hands of the 12 senators. It has a Dark Knight Council formed by the liches to manage the affairs of the empire, but they only have the right to make suggestions to the 12 senators. To put it simply, there was a group of undead lords, senators, who wielded military power that made it impossible for the Dark Knight Council to deal with them. However, the senators were also unable to deal with the united power of the Liches. Without an undead emperor with the highest authority in the world, both sides could only go their own way and not interfere with each other. This was how this strange system was forcefully created. Of course, there are also senators who are close to the parliament. Even the chairman of the parliament, Feyman, is the second senator. In fact, there are a few senators who are close to the parliament. The proposal to abolish the senators would be brought up in the parliament every year, but it is a pity that as long as they don't want to start a civil war, this proposal is destined to fail. On the other hand, Grey, Sin and Lionheart are both senators who aren't close to the parliament. Furthermore, they are the minority within the senators. Most of the senators have their eyes on the highest authority, while they are the royalty faction who believe that Emperor Yongye will return one day. This is an obviously idealistic idea. Although it is supported by the veterans from the Emperor's era, it is too unrealistic, making it hard for them to grow in the undead race, which is getting more and more realistic. As time passes, more and more of their companions turn to other factions. Not long ago, the royalty faction which once had 4 senators split up once again. One of the 4 heavenly kings under the emperor, the corpse-eating ghost king Dekars, turned to the parliament faction, causing this minority faction to suffer a heavy blow. Being the boss faction, most of the senators, the parliament faction, headed by the second senator, the ideal royalty faction and the living foolishly faction. These are probably the biggest factions in the Shilua Empire. It might sound complicated, but compared to the hundreds of factions in the human empire, in this country with tens of millions of intelligent people, the undead are already simple enough. Furthermore, most of the undead directly state their goals, waiting for the emperor's return. With the parliament in power, I will be the boss. Ah Dang doesn't mind who becomes the boss, Ah Dang only cares about eating. If I become the boss, I will start a new undead calamity. To the nobles who are used to beating around the bush, this is simply inconceivable. Now, the 2 big shots of the royalty faction are meeting in broad daylight. Probably, all kinds of rumors and information will be flying around. But at this moment, facing Grey Sin's questioning, Lionheart didn't even raise his head, only throwing out a sentence. There is news of the Eternal Night Scepter. Grey Sin is stunned for a moment before her face is filled with shock. Didn't you say that there is no need for the existence of the Eternal Night Scepter? Aren't those works of yours meant to scare people? Yes, based on my previous judgment, His Majesty most probably treats it as a joke. Furthermore, it is a joke filled with malice. The reason why I wrote those things is to divert the attention of those ambitious people who are vying for the throne into finding the wooden scepter which they might never find. Lionheart raises his head, his eyebrows are twisted together and his expression is filled with all sorts of emotions. There is joy, anger, reminiscence, unease. A few days ago, I received 2 reports regarding the underground world. One of them is regarding the Eternal Night Scepter. However, I suggest that you take a look at the other one first. Grey Sin snatches it over, but I thought that it is some important report. Isn't this a travel brochure? Lionheart, are you intending to go on a holiday? You even intend to invite me along? I'm sorry, you are a good person, but other than the Emperor, I am not interested in other dead people. He is already used to his colleagues being unreliable. Compared to the other 2 heavenly kings, this Bone Dragon Queen who always thinks too much is considered easy to deal with. Silently keeping the good person card, Lionheart says solemnly, "Please take a closer look. Death Crown Undead Theme Park and Ghost Festival Tourism Week. Enjoy a journey filled with darkness and death. Free entrance fee for the first 30 days? What is this? Is this another boring plan suggested by a fool? Boring, I am a little interested in a war theme park. But for Undead Theme Park and Ghost Festival, don't we have them every day? Please take a closer look. Sulphur Mountain City? Oh, Adam Han has finally gone mad? Congratulations! Please take a closer look. Even the patient Lionheart can't stand the weird thoughts of the Bone Dragon Queen. His tone is filled with helplessness and pleading. Looking at the steely face of her little brother, Gray, Sin finally becomes a little more serious. Just as she flips to the second page, she is stunned. It is a realistic poster. On it, there are quite a few undead dressed in weird clothes parading the street. Some of them are beating gongs and drums while some are singing and dancing. But if it was just that, why would Sin be frightened? At this moment, she only knows that she is pointing at a corner of the painting with her mouth wide open. The image of the undead lord is completely gone. That skeleton dog who is dressed in all sorts of colors and is covered with peacock feathers is trying his best to stand on his hands. Below him is a green-colored ball. This is a cute pet pushing game. However, it seems that his balance isn't that good. If he isn't careful, he would slip and the artist just happens to capture the moment when he falls. It's boss Bastion, the head of the most ferocious and strongest of the 4 heavenly kings, the demonic void dog Bastion. Lionheart had already covered his ears in advance, but he still felt dizzy from the Bone Dragon Queen's banshee-like screams. This ancient Bone Dragon Queen's singing voice had long been known as the Throat of Death. It's so King awful. I authorize you to beat her to death if she dares to open her throat and sing, by a certain emperor. At this moment, even Lionheart can understand the death scream of the other party. When he first saw this painting, he wasn't any better than him. Demonic Void Dog Bastion, the leader of the Red Hunting Hound army of the Emperor of Yongya, the deputy chief commander of the entire Yongya army and the head of the 4 heavenly kings. There are a lot of such titles, but publicly, he is the strongest and most ferocious undead lord. He once destroyed countless armies and kingdoms by himself, leaving only ruins wherever he went. Furthermore, he is the most trusted and relied on general of Emperor Yongya. He and the other armies under him should have been destroyed in that battle. Now that he suddenly appeared, and in such a cute appearance, it naturally gave Sin quite a fright. I can't be wrong. That tail is strangely twisted, and the scratches on its head. Most importantly, it has 2 left legs on its upper limbs and 2 right legs on its lower limbs. It's impossible for other skeleton dogs to look like this. That's right. Other than Lord Botet, I can't think of anyone else who would remove all 4 limbs before going to sleep, and then randomly reattach them after waking up. Front leg, back leg, left leg, right leg, and so on. Then, when walking, all 4 limbs would move freely, spinning around. The head of the 4 heavenly kings who should have been dead suddenly appeared. What does it mean? Sin is shocked. Happiness comes too easily, but she also feels a little guilty. Could it be that the artist casually drew it? No, look at the back. Flipping the back, it is a skeleton general with 18 arms. At this moment, the weapons in his hands aren't swords stained with blood but wooden poles with spinning plates hanging on them. At the back, there is even an accepted note. Master of Miscellany DYPHY will perform extreme skills for you, spinning 18 plates at the same time. Squinting her eyes, Sin looks at it for a long time but isn't able to see anything. It doesn't seem like anything. It is just a fellow who knows how to spin plates. When skeleton generals are promoted, they can choose to have an additional pair of arms to wield weapons. However, the soul has its own limit. Too many weapons will only distract them, and they will only hurt themselves. A normal skeleton general is able to control 4 weapons, a top-notch weapon master is able to control 8, an undead lord is able to control 12, and there is one who can control 16. He is Lord Bastion's subordinate, Red Hunting Hound's chief instructor, Great Sword Saint DYPHY. Looks like he has improved once again. DYPHY? DYPHY? This fake name is too insincere. And this one? This is a headless knight who uses his own head to play polo. Aside, an exciting competition that you have never seen before. Comigia that idiot. Damn Baldy. Damn cross-eyed, even if you turn into ashes, I would still recognize you. Yes, the Titan wrestler, the most terrifying fearless vanguard, Red Hunting Hound's vice-leader, Lord Comisia. And this? That is a Lich who is rubbing his hands together. At this moment, his face is filled with smiles and he is carrying a bag of pale green potions. Aside, a delicious drink that you have never tasted before. Created by the alchemist master Dyphy for you, it is your favorite to strengthen your body. That alchemist symbol and that strange hat. The tyrant of Plague Kaka. The potion that she created is something that even the undead wouldn't dare to drink. As for the living, Pui, they will definitely be strengthened after drinking it. However, I hope that they still remember what they look like and can try to restore their original appearance in the future. And this, and this. The legendary Bone Dragon who acts as a mount and commentator, the Queen of the Lamia who does belly dances, the Great Witch who sets up a divination stall. I roughly understand it now. Yes, my intelligence agent has already disguised himself as a tourist and went on a tour once. He even obtained a commemorative badge for the 9th tourist. Looks like the business is terrible. He has also confirmed that the characters in the painting are real, which means Grey. Sin stands up abruptly and her strange eyes are filled with surprise. Which means that the Emperor is still around. Yes, only the Emperor would be able to make these ace soldiers dress up like this, and only the Emperor would be able to make Boss obediently play with a ball. This is just my initial guess. There are too many suspicious points about the matter back then. Why would the Red Hunting Hounds of the Royal Guards suddenly leave His Majesty and head over 1,000 miles away? Why would the armies of the other 3 heavenly kings suddenly be moved to the periphery of the war zone and thus escape the calamity of the civil war? Perhaps the underground world will give us the answer. Following which, the news regarding the Eternal Night Scepter that should have been shocking becomes less important in the eyes of the two of them because of the small travel booklet. I want to go to the underground world immediately. That darn Decas. He was promoted step by the Emperor from a weak ghoul to his current position. Back then, you were shouting for revenge so loudly and I thought that you were the most loyal. In the end, after persevering for 100 years, you still betrayed us. When the Emperor and Boss return, let's see how they deal with you. After hesitating for a moment, Lionheart says softly. Actually, there are some suspicious points about Lord Decast's betrayal. 10 years ago, when the news of Adam Han came, when the proposal for revenge was blocked in the council, and we didn't support him, didn't he go to Sulphur Mountain City alone to seek revenge against Adam? We thought that he would never return. Yes, no one expected that not only did he return, he even held a few arena tournaments excitedly. We were all happy that he had thought things through, then, in the blink of an eye, he defected to the council faction. Perhaps this is the biggest suspicious point. His Majesty had praised Decas as his most loyal dog many times. This might sound like an insult, but you should know that the Emperor has a special love for dogs. Decas has always treated this nickname as the highest honor and it is a nickname exclusive to His Majesty. That's right. Back then, when he wanted to use the weird name, Night Hounds to replace the army code, Night Winterwolves, it is fortunate that you stopped him. It is a pity that the Royal Guards still used the Red Hunting Hounds in the end. Even though the Pink Queen Squad sounds nice too. Cough. A light cough turns into slander in his heart. Your taste in naming is as weird as His Majesty's. In addition to that fatal throat of death, this is the reason why His Majesty chose Lord Bastion and not you to be the captain of the Royal Guards. Of course, he won't say these words out loud. I believe in His Majesty's foresight. Since he trusts Decas so much, then, Decas should be trustworthy. Perhaps Lord Decas met something in the underground world or someone gave him instructions. As they say this, their gaze turns towards the travel brochure on the table. I will set off now. I am unable to leave Shilua, so I can only rely on you. The underground world will definitely not be peaceful now. If even us ignorant warlords, the derogatory name of the council, can receive news of the eternal night scepter, those fellows who have been searching for it for a century will definitely come out in full force. Lord Grey. Sin, please focus on finding that person. If I didn't guess wrongly, this scepter might be a trap set by that person. Grey. Sin isn't someone who doesn't listen to advice. This little brother isn't one of the 4 heavenly kings, but with his loyalty and wisdom to the Emperor, he walks step by step to the core of the royal faction. His advice is very useful to an old fellow like me, so naturally I have to respect it. Right, please bring Lord Audang along. If my guess isn't wrong, since that person intends to stir up trouble, then he should be looking forward to reuniting with Lord Audang. Are you sure? Alright, I understand, I will bring him along. Carnivore Audang, the final boss of the royal faction, the 12th senator. Actually, as a giant abomination, his intelligence isn't considered high. But in terms of individual fighting prowess, there isn't a single undead in the entire Shilua who dares to challenge this weakling who isn't fit to become an undead lord and senator. Audang's intelligence isn't high, but after the departure of the Emperor, he has always listened to his elder brothers and sisters. As long as Grey Sin speaks, he would even tear apart the Parliament building and beat up the Lich counselor who slandered the Emperor. Looking at the leaving Grey Sin, Lionheart stands up. Looking at the prosperous scenery outside the window, he falls into deep thought and reminiscence. Those are the teachings of the Emperor. Little Lionheart, it isn't cute to only know how to fight and kill. You won't be able to last long as a thug. If you only know how to charge around, you will be treated as an idiot. It is better for you to read more books and become a proper professional. Right, do you like history? I have always believed that reading history will make one more intelligent, so you should read more history books when you have the time. Recalling that pair of warm hands which had been beautified in the memory, and that gentle, knowledgeable and caring voice, which had also been beautified, the Emperor's former attendant, little Reinhardt, who was now the observer of history, was also trying to read history to understand the present. He was using his eyes to look past the shackles of time. You are always looking at history books and worrying at night, as though the calamities that destroyed the eras might descend at any moment. I am unable to understand those strange deduced notes. Goddess of Order? Grim Reaper Ale? Chain reaction? Butterfly effect? Your Majesty, what exactly did you see? What kind of despair would make you choose to abandon everything and start anew? Who? Come out. After a roar, a familiar smiling face appears outside the door. That is Grey Sin, who has returned. Little brother Lionheart, it is better to lower your voice when you talk to yourself. If not, if it were to spread out, outsiders would think that you are crazy. Did you hear? No, I only came back to inform you of one thing. I didn't hear anything else. Looking at the Bone Dragon Queen, who is trying her best to act dumb, Lionheart smiles in annoyance. She and Audang are the people he trusts the most in this dangerous country. Inform me of what? In the future, I will not be called Grey Sin, I will be called Gria. Don't get it wrong. Upon hearing this, Lionheart felt strange. Why, you have been called Grey Sin for thousands of years. Why did you suddenly change your name? It can't be that you listened to those fortune-tellers in the alley. They are all ignorant scammers. No, it is just a small problem that I have to change my name. Inconceivable. Who would be able to make a first-tier duke, come senator of the empire, change your name? Previously, didn't the Senate reorganize the aristocratic system and inheritance of the entire country? They suddenly realized that my name is unable to be displayed on the magic network, nor is it able to be printed out. Thus, they suggested for me to change my name. Unable to be displayed? Why? It is because of the problem with the Grey Sin and Grey Sin. It is said that in a certain remote mountainous region, Grey Sin is a nickname for certain females with a unique sexual orientation. Previously, when the system was upgraded, the organization in charge of the magic network, for the sake of civilization creation points, blocked the forbidden words. Now, the magic network automatically marks all the forbidden words with XX. Thus, if I insist on being called Grey Sin in the future, my nameplate will show the Empire's first-tier Duke, 4th Senator GUXX. Wouldn't that be even more embarrassing? Left with no choice, I can only change my name to Gria. Don't get it wrong in the future. Can you be even more ridiculous than that? You are a senator of the Empire, yet you changed your name for such a strange reason? Isn't your dignity and pride crying? All right, it is said that the main reason is that a certain will of the universe is too lazy to mark the middle of my name. Thus, I was renamed. Chapter 38. Underground City Vicastin, in the language of the goblins, is known as the Platinum City. Its geographical location is very unique. It is located in the middle of a few active volcanic rocks, a city within a rock. The never-ending river of lava separates this city from the surrounding areas. The only way to enter the floating castle is through the spiral staircase beneath the city. If one were to meet with an enemy, as long as one blocks the spiral staircase or simply fills it with water or poisonous smoke, it would be basically cut off from the outside world. Behind the walls of this city, there is actually an exit that leads to the surface, allowing it to operate as a middleman between the surface and the underground world. This gives it the option of advancing or retreating in the face of danger. In the underground world, safety is far more valuable than anything else. Very quickly, it attracted countless merchants to settle down here, and it became one of the trading centers far and wide. Other than the goblins who still insist on using its original name, the other races usually refer to it as Vitan. Vitan City's outstanding geographical location, a terrain that is easy to defend and hard to attack, made this city the true golden city of the underground world. The goblins who discovered and built it earned a huge sum of money. Of course, in the underground world, not having the strength to possess treasures and wealth is also the biggest sin. The cliff on the ground is unable to defend against the dagger behind one's back and the breath of a flying dragon. After a series of schemes and calculations, the first batch of goblin founders disappeared in the wind. Now, there is no city lord here, and it is the most famous masterless neutral city. The reason? It is because the structure of the city is too complicated. Every underground city lord has their own forces, and whoever becomes the city lord might be killed the next day. Thus, this place became a strange masterless zone. Keep a public path to the top, a place to trade and communicate with other cities, the underground city lords and underground autarchs who have tasted the sweetness of the benefits formed a consensus. This is also the reason why Vitan City is the place where the Underground Alliance was established. After all, if they were to form an alliance in the territory of the Dark Elves, the Grey Dwarves and Beastmen would be unhappy. If they were to form an alliance in the territory of the Beastmen, the Elves, Dwarves and Humans would not accept it. If they were to form an alliance in the Dragon City, they would first need a pair of wings. If they were to form an alliance in a trading city like the Goblins, due to the high entrance fees and accommodation fees, everyone would be unhappy. The ownerless Vance naturally becomes the only choice. A week ago, after the shocking entrance into the city, the news of the 17 giant metal titans and the Eternal Knight's scepter that he escorted had spread throughout the entire underground city. Sulphur Mountain City's young city lord and also started to gain some fame. But now I was wearing a long robe and a cloak, wandering around this city that had many similarities to Sulphur Mountain. The reason why Vance City is similar to Sulphur Mountain City is that it is one of the few cities where many races live together. Similarly, there aren't any so-called underground nobles, and both of them are famous and prosperous trading cities. However, in my eyes, they are two completely different places. Other than the undead, who are neighbors that are too hard to accept, most of the races in Sulphur Mountain City live together. In a small shop, in a patrol squad, in a barber shop, it is possible that every member is of a different race. In Sulphur Mountain City, the equality between the races has already become a habit. Slaves and the like are completely unacceptable. In this city, the slave trade is extremely developed. There is even a specialized slave market and a slave arena. Although there are many races here, there is a clear division between the races. Not to mention that they don't interfere with each other, the barriers between the races are strict and they fight in the dark. For example, the two humans who were dragged into the Beastmen district by the Wolf Riders just now, they probably won't be able to come out ever again. This should be the Elf district. Only they would be so free. Elves are publicly acknowledged as a race of art. Their pursuit of beauty and art is endless. The exiled Dark Elves are the same as well. However, if one were to say that they only have exquisite carvings on their buildings, sculptures and paintings, then one would be underestimating them. The huge rocks hanging from the ceiling of the cliff in front of me are carved into the likeness of a beautiful woman. That expression of wanting to reject yet welcoming, those curled lips, those seductive curves that can't be covered by her arms always reminds me of certain matters that aren't suitable for children. Uncle Bones, look at this sword, it's so beautiful. Since it is a private visit, naturally, I wouldn't bring too many people with me. The one wearing the same cloak behind me is naturally the nominal leader of the envoy, and my external conscience, Eliza. At this moment, the sword that Anne is brandishing is a thin mithril sword. The body of the sword is as long as a needle and there are golden patterns of roses on it. On the hilt of the sword, there are two fallen angels carved side by side. Their wings are spread open, and they seem to be howling at the sky. The green blade of the sword shows that it isn't just a decoration but a lethal weapon that has been enchanted with poison. At the very least, that black-skinned dark elf merchant is trying his best to convince the young city lord of this point. Artwork: Sword of Fallen Angels attack power, 0 to 5 plus 1 poison damage, grade, excellent special effect, none. Oh no, she still has a special effect. At the very least, it can show that you are rich enough to be foolish enough to buy such a flashy toy. Perhaps if you wave it at the sun, it might even dazzle your opponent's eyes. Weakness: extremely fragile. When clashing with an excellent grade weapon, there is a 70% chance that it will shatter instantly. HE above. That elf idiot actually carved a hollow part of the sword for the sake of aesthetics. This is a typical elf artwork. It is beautifully decorated, meticulously carved, made of expensive materials, perfect craftsmanship, and then useless. Battle? Do you intend to bring artwork to the battlefield? Or do you intend to inscribe that you are an artist on your epitaph? You better go and choose the dwarf stupid boorish at this moment, looking at and who is waving the rapier with all her might. I am a little speechless. What do you mean by the system admitting that you are a work of art? What do you mean by the system admitting that you are trash? The products of the elves always leave one speechless. The pursuit of art and beauty is indeed undeniable. However, if one were to go to such an extent, using the precious enchanted metal mithril to make the body of the sword, but due to excessive carving, the body of the sword is even more fragile than a normal weapon, wouldn't that be putting the cart before the horse? 4 weapons of the same material, the elven smiths would always make them look so beautiful. However, the excessive decorations and adjustments to the practicality of the weapon for the sake of aesthetics would always make them speechless. For example, the elven rapier in front of me or the more famous elven chainmail. Chainmail is famous for its compatibility with magic. Normal metals would have a huge impact on the spellcasting. Even battle mages who frequently go to the front lines for close combat are often forced to choose mage robes instead of metal armor, which has more outstanding defensive properties. Yet, the elven archmages invented this elven chainmail known as Song of Harmony. It is said that it allows mages to wear it as comfortably as normal clothes, not affecting their spellcasting at all. In reality, it really succeeded. The overjoyed kingdom of the elves paid a huge price to popularize this series of chainmail, only to realize that there is a small problem. The defensive properties of this chainmail is even worse than normal clothes. Chainmail is usually made up of sturdy chains. When they are twisted together, they provide reliable defensive properties. However, the hollow metal chains of the Song of Harmony chainmail would break with a single touch. It has no defensive properties against metal weapons at all. Sometimes, in order to avoid arrows, they would just roll on the ground and shatter the chains. After that, they would have to spend a few hours to knead and piece them back together before bracing themselves to wear it, pretending that everything is fine. After all, a poor soldier wouldn't be able to afford the compensation fee for the chainmail with 4 zeros at the end. After that, the Elven Palace carried out an investigation on the design and attempted to improve it. However, they soon realized that it is precisely because the chains are hollow enough that magic can flow freely on the body of the caster. However, with the hollowness, there is no need to think about increasing the defensive properties. Adding thickness would make it no different from other metal armor. Fundamentally, this design is self-contradictory and naturally, there is no way to improve it. As a result, the precious metals in the kingdom's treasury were depleted, and not long after, the kingdom was destroyed by the undead calamity. The Song of Harmony chainmail became the symbol of the elves' flashy but impractical equipment. To tell the truth, I don't know how to deal with the precious metals in those few warehouses. Deep processing and enchantment have already made it impossible for them to be processed. In the end, I threw them to the elven craftsmen and let them turn them into sculptures or similar works of art. This is also the reason why elven products aren't popular in the underground world but highly sought after by the nobles of the human kingdoms on the surface. The best-selling weapons and equipment in the underground world will forever be the Grey Dwarves, stupid big boorish. Of course, the elves themselves won't admit it. They think that this is the slander of the short-lived species. We have enough time to gradually perfect it. You are just jealous of our artistic selves. You foolish and short-sighted things are only suitable to use the dwarves' ugly fire stick. The gigantic female elf sculpture in front of me is also the same. Some people seem to think that she is a sculpture of the goddess Rose or a necessary item for a certain magic ritual. However, even if the system didn't directly tell me that it is a sculpture of a certain stripper by the sculptor Xine, I can guess that this is probably the result of the elves' artistic talent acting up. Hanging upside down on the cliff, a 100-meter tall sculpture that requires levitation magic to reach. It is beautiful and attracts the gazes of countless people, but in the end, it is just a sculpture. If it is made by human craftsmen, they would need at least a team of 400 people to work together for 5 to 6 years. However, if it is an elf, it might just be some great artist who suddenly went crazy and spent a few hundred years here alone to create something meaningless. In front of the elves who have an average lifespan of 1,000 years, they can indeed afford to waste time, but humans don't have the time. The competition of patience with Lorcie's high priestess come child, Kaja, has finally come to an end. When I continuously grind the third matriarch messenger to the point that she takes the initiative to leave, she also neatly left a letter, inviting me to Vance's elf district for a direct discussion. At this moment, Eliza, who is behind me, used the reason that we are about to hold a secret meeting and it isn't suitable for us to interact too much with the local merchants, successfully persuading and to give up on that sword. Art piece. Lord Anne, please focus on official matters. You can leave the miscellaneous matters like purchasing to us servants. Her words are filled with venom as usual, but ever since and realized that she can't win no matter what she says. Of course, there is also the factor of her being unable to defeat this elder sister of hers. She started to get used to ignoring the malice in her words. But looking at this situation, I frown. and is the city lord that we have decided on, and Eliza might very well become the future head of the Internal Affairs Department, the head of the Supreme Court, and other high-ranking officials. If they don't get along well or even become enemies with each other, Sulphur Mountain City might be in big trouble in the future. Eliza is obviously able to maintain basic politeness to everyone, but why is she so hostile towards Anne? Looks like I have to find a chance to have a talk with her. Suddenly, the elf guards in front of me open up and a tall dark elf priestess walks out from the shadows. Behind her, there are quite a number of prideful dark elf females dressed in luxurious clothes. There are a total of 72 dark elf cities in the underground world, but there are more than 20 matriarchs of the first family here. Excluding the factor of being unable to make it in time due to the distance, Spider Queen Rose and her priests rule over at least half of the dark elf cities. Is this a show of force? Of course, this is a show of force. Any of the matriarchs here in their own underground city have authority and influence that isn't any less than the city lord of Sulphur Mountain City. For them to silently line up like subordinates, it shows Kaja's authority, and without a doubt, it is a silent pressure. Mortal, you need to know humility so that you can stand on equal footing with my subordinate. But I laugh. An emperor will never compete with a peasant in terms of authority. True authoritative figures and victors don't need unnecessary decorations. Putting up such a show can only mean that she is lacking in confidence. She is worried and fearful of Sulphur Mountain City's strength. She wants something to suppress this new autarch. Looks like the scene when we entered the city was quite effective. That day, when we entered the city, 17 Roland series robots arrogantly barged into the city. After being intercepted, one of them was sent out and it flattened the 2 black dragons guarding the city gate. In the chaotic battle, it even accidentally smashed the alloy city gate of the city, showcasing the powerful strength and sturdy materials of the giant robots. After that, I made and announced on the spot that these giant robots are the weapons and equipment that Sulphur Mountain City is going to auction off, causing a huge wave. This is much more beneficial than any kind of advertisement or boasting. Everyone would think, since they are willing to sell this kind of war machine that can stand on its own as a dragon slayer, then, does Sulphur Mountain City have an even stronger trump card? Of course, this is just a bluff. At this moment, I can't help but recall the report that I received from Roe and the rest a while ago. Lord, Roland number 3 to number 18 has been fully equipped. If the operator of one of them is a gold rank battle job, it should be able to display the battle prowess of half a legend. Back then I was shocked. After all, the rampage of that Roland number 2 is still fresh in my mind. No matter how one looks at it, that powerful battle prowess that can easily crush a legend. Although it might not have reached the level of a world saint, it shouldn't be too far away. Yet, it is only half a legend. But very quickly, I understood the whole story from the explanation. Roland number 2 is a prototype. A prototype is a money-burning product that no matter what price we have to pay or how many precious metals we have to use, we have to prove that the design is correct. Back then, more than 100 engineers brought along their treasures, and one of them even used the Titan's heart that was passed down from his ancestors to allow number 2 to achieve such prowess. If you want the other Rolands to achieve this level of battle prowess, I'm afraid that even if we, the engineers, are able to do it, you wouldn't be able to pay the bill. Very quickly, I received a verification from the engineers. No matter what kind of engineering robot it is made up of a power source, an exoskeleton mech, an engine and a transmission system. The Titan's heart is a heart-shaped gem that is formed after the death of a Titan. It is filled with the highest level of lightning power and is also the highest level of power source. After all, this world is relatively balanced. It is impossible to achieve the battle prowess of a legend in a short period of time. Even if I were to create a strong outer shell of the mech, without a sufficient top-notch power source, it is impossible to create a stronger equipment. In reality, in this weird world where fossil fuels are still in its infancy and rockets are flying everywhere, an excellent power source can only be found when hunting super monsters. It is something that can only be chanced upon and not sought after. The power source that is sufficient to provide a strong power source is the foundation for an engineering robot to display its prowess. Mentioning this, I couldn't help but think of a similar experience. Previously, didn't I use the system to do a monthly lottery draw? That time, I just happened to draw a weapon that surpasses the god equipment, a mystical tool from a certain blue-skinned raccoon's dimension, the shrinking lamp. At that time, I was overjoyed. I thought that this messed-up system had finally returned to normal for once, giving me a really usable top-notch equipment. But right after that, I realized that I was scammed. It was too early for me to be happy and I underestimated the system's bottom line. The shrinking lamp is real, but it doesn't have a battery. Looking at the shrinking lamp and the manual that I can't use, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry as I begged the system to let me exchange for a battery. Unfortunately, that bastard system didn't intend to let me wield the pinnacle of karma from the very start, so how could it agree to exchange for a battery? After drawing 3 times with the battery as the goal, I only obtained a bamboo dragonfly without a battery, a certain-eyed cowboy's toy pistol, and a ridiculously full hot tub. After that, I deeply understood the spirit of scamming the system and decided to rely on myself. Later on, after confirming that there is no concept of a small-scale artificial energy battery in the field of engineering, I racked my brains and collected countless books on chemistry. Only then did I realize that according to the industrial level of the HE continent, to create something like a battery, the first thing to do is to solve a series of bottlenecks such as chemical electrolytes and conductive metal electrodes. And to solve these obstacles, I also have to overcome a series of new technical problems. By the time I am done with all the required technological trees, a conservative estimate is that it will take 200 to 300 years. Furthermore, I still need to have a smooth journey of miracles. Thus, I could only helplessly give up on my ambition to start an industrial revolution in the HE continent. I went off topic again. Let's get back to the main topic. After knowing that Roland number 2 is very powerful before it explodes, but the machines after number 3 can only reach the strength of a quasi-legend close combat job, I immediately changed my plans. All of the Roland system uses the appearance of number 2 as the standard, not allowing any differences. Even the serial number behind Roland has to be erased, making it impossible for others to differentiate between them. After that, it becomes simple. After a show of Roland number 2 putting on a show, the other Rolands behind it become the strongest threat. To speak the truth, every time this name comes up, it makes me feel awkward for a long time. But it is a pity that we are unable to come to a consensus on changing the name. In the eyes of those in the know, it is an existence that can crush a legend rank. Paired with 16.5 legend rank, it is very frightening to a normal underground city lord. After all, a normal underground city lord is just a legend rank. But, to an underground autarch who owns a 3-digit number of underground cities, it is nothing. But now, after a show, in the eyes of those who don't know, it is 13 saint rank war machines. Even an underground autarch has to be careful. After that, the announcement of the auction made people shocked at the terrifying background of Sulphur Mountain City being able to casually sell 13 saint rank. I can also earn a huge profit. At the very least, I can recoup the cost of materials and manpower. If both sides aren't on the same level, then what's the point of talking about cooperation? No matter how we talk about it, we will just be swallowed up and merged. The effect that I have spent so much effort to create has already been achieved. The daughter of the true god Rose, the highest leader of all dark elves in name, Kaja, the stance that she is putting on now is sufficient to prove everything. You must be Womians. I hope that the footsteps of the Spider Queen will ring in your ears. Perhaps we can have a talk. You and me in private, in secret. Kaja's voice seems to have a unique charm to it, as though she is a lover who is whispering words of love, as though she is a holy priest who is preaching, causing one to unknowingly want to listen more. But at this moment, hearing her words and ambiguous invitation, the matriarchs behind her burst into laughter. Under the bizarre and proactive view of love of the Dark Elves, this seemingly ambiguous invitation is actually as rude and crude as "Chick, let's go get a room. I hope that the footsteps of the Spider Queen will ring in your ears" isn't anything good either. It might seem as though she is asking the god that she believes in to bless you, but in reality, it is also a vicious curse. Rose is the goddess of spiders, and spiders don't have the sound of footstep. When she purposely makes a drumbeat that sounds like her footsteps, it is just to remind you of her arrival. Or perhaps it is to say that she has already decided to get rid of you and wants to see your ugly state of survival. How many years has it been? The elves still like to play this game, adding some sarcasm and curses in their greetings. If you can't hear it, they can laugh loudly at your lack of knowledge, and the short lifespan of your race, and your lack of accumulation. However, this game is ineffective against me. In the past, I have even witnessed and led the destruction of several kingdoms of the elves that have existed for tens of thousands of years. Countless precious books have become part of my collection, so what does this kind of sarcastic joke count as? Respected Madam Kaja, thank you for your greeting. I hope that the 8 eyes of the Spider Queen will always be staring at you. I hope that the Oracle of Candlelight will descend by your side as soon as possible. This isn't anything good either. Spider Queen Rose's savagery, cunning, suspicious, fickle-minded, jealous, due to her terrible reputation, it can be added with any negative adjectives, is well known throughout the world. How can it be a good thing to be targeted by her? Candlelight God Envoy? It is just a wax demon. Furthermore, this kind of evil being is the messenger of Rose. When it descends, it will definitely bring a series of schemes and troubles. If I complete it well, I might not be rewarded. If I don't complete it well, I might be able to meet Rose directly. My soul will go and my body will remain. For the mistress, it is better not to meet this kind of superior. My blessings may be a disaster to me personally, but to Priest Rose, being valued by a superior god is naturally a good thing. So, Kaja can't refute it. However, Kaja, who suffered a loss in silence, smiles casually. As expected of the great saint who is able to create the power of law alone. Your knowledge and wisdom is worthy of our respect. Let us toss aside the minor details and discuss the topic that we are concerned about. As she says that, she stretches out her hand, intending to let me kiss it. However, the hand that Kaja stretched out stopped in midair. That is because I silently took a step back, giving way to and who is behind me. It is a pleasure to meet you. I am An Lade, the next city lord of Sulphur Mountain City. Uncle Woomians said that I should be the one to negotiate with you. With a cheerful smile and greets Kaja. Then, she grabs her hand and shakes it with all her might. At this moment, Kaja, whose body is shaking non-stop, looks at me in surprise. To the dark elves who view fighting for power and status as instincts, she disregards this puppet little city lord from the start. What's more, she can't understand is why I let and represent Sulphur Mountain City, even though I have an overwhelming advantage in all aspects. On the other hand, I silently look at everything that is happening in front of me. To say something unbelievable, I don't have any confidence in Anne's negotiation. After all, I only wanted her to negotiate with me, but I didn't reveal anything about the negotiation. We can't accompany you for half your life. This is nurturing and also a test. Good luck, little Anne. Humph. Lord, you sure are affectionate. As expected, a fiancé is different. However, little Anne, you don't seem to be a necrophile, right? Do you need me to prepare to comfort you for the 999th time? Don't spread rumors. People will believe it. How can there be 999 times, only 46 times of heartbreak? It hasn't reached 3 digits yet. Master, I have to remind you that the hearing of elves with their long ears are quite good. You spoke so loudly that all the grandmothers heard your heartbreak record. It seems that a few of them are constantly glancing at your lower body. From their comments, it seems like they are planning to try a new taste and eat a 1,000-year-old virgin chicken like you. Perhaps they might even give you a red packet after the matter. But, as she says that, she pushes her spectacles and the corner of her mouth curls up, revealing a gaze that looks like pity but is actually mockery. The meaning behind her words is very clear. You are just a fellow with only bones left and you are still thinking about women? I don't want a red packet. I want to revive. As she says that, a certain someone tearfully starts to prepare. Then, if you have a physical body, are you willing to be eaten by these old women who can be your grandmothers? They are really dirty. A certain female servant takes the chance to pursue. Chapter 39. This is our proposal. As a part of the alliance, we hope to obtain the right to purchase the market price of the 30 products on this list. Also, we hope that the dark elf merchants will be able to freely enter your city. In the spacious conference hall, it is still decorated with the same luxurious elf sword dance style as before. Listening to the negotiation of both sides, I almost dozed off. And we'll deal with the military affairs. Marguerite will assist in the business affairs. There is nothing for me to do. Since I have nothing to do anyway, let's find some fun. Of course, the market price of the 23 common products is acceptable. But mercury, dragon poison, twice-processed liquid sulfur and the other 7 products are controlled or prohibited by the government. It is impossible for them to be sold outside unless you agree to trade equally with those special products on our list. Furthermore, as long as your dark elf merchants are proper merchants and not spies and assassins wearing the clothes of merchants, why would you be afraid of our inspection? Pushing up her glasses, Eliza says so. Big sister, you are still trying to bargain with this little cucumber. Fine too. $5. Take it all, but you have to include these tomatoes. Don't worry, they are all fresh goods. Hee little girl, then let's trade equally. To be honest, these trade deals are just the appetizer to deepen our relationship. Perhaps we should talk about the main topic. For example, about that power of law of yours. Kaja smiles. Young lad, let's do it this way. I don't care about such a small amount of money. Right? How much are you selling those yellow croakers for? This time, Eliza frowns slightly but doesn't say anything. Instead, she looks towards Anne. And can decide on this matter. If you dark elves are interested in the power of law, you can send someone to Sulphur Mountain City to learn. But you have to swear in the name of the Spider Queen that you are not to harm the citizens. At the same time, you have to swear to give up on pursuing and killing the dark elves in Sulphur Mountain City. If you want the yellow croakers, $12 a caddy, I will give it to you at a low price. This yellow croakers are very fresh, it is best to eat it when cooked. But, if you accept the yellow croakers, then don't blame me for the potato from before. Hearing Anne's reply, Kaja shook her head. The will of the Spider Queen cannot be neglected. The traitors must be eliminated, and we elves have plenty of time to wait. Let these traitors patiently wait for the arrival of the day of the end. All right, let's not talk about these disappointing things. Perhaps we can talk about a deeper topic, such as a military alliance against a certain side. Of course, an alliance that won't be written on paper. That won't do. Our cafeteria boss is a fair trader. The potato bill has to be paid sooner or later. But let's talk about something else. For example, when are we going to beat up that fatty who always bullies people? Of course, if Fatty finds out beforehand, I won't admit it. Obviously, what happened before was just the appetizer. The current private military alliance was the real reason for the secret meeting today. And hesitated, but Eliza's eyebrows furrowed, and her face was full of frost. She seemed to be troubled. It should be very troublesome. Of course it will be very troublesome. This decision will represent countless lives and futures. However, it is precisely because there is great pressure that one can grow and improve. I have high hopes for you too, Elisa, Annie. Please wait for a moment. Finally, she made up her mind, stood up, and walked in front of me. Master, have you had enough? Don't play those boring vegetable buying jokes in my head. Don't hinder our negotiation. Ah, did I accidentally say it out? Sorry. Apologizing without any sincerity, then lowering her head to reduce her presence. Of course, one should have a target to complain to. Wouldn't talking to yourself make you crazy? All right, in the eyes of outsiders, Eliza stood silently in front of me, looking me in the eyes. Then, I maintained my silence, as though tacitly giving the right to make the decision to the other party. Sorry for my rudeness. After apologizing, Eliza sat back down. Actually, what I said isn't wrong. Negotiation is still bargaining, haggling over every ounce. Is there any difference from buying vegetables in the market? I'm thinking about a problem, please be quiet. All right, you all only know how to bully old bones. If you think that old bones are annoying, then old bones should go out for a walk. Coincidentally, I was also fed up with the boring atmosphere in the negotiation room, so I stood up to leave. Please be careful on your way back. Return to the encampment earlier. Don't randomly pick up food from the ground, don't make too many children cry, in case their parents come knocking on your door. Also, don't get caught doing bad things. I'm not familiar with the police station here, so I don't want to go there to collect people. Alright, away from the childlike nagging, I started to reflect on whether I made a mistake. Back then, the cute little girl who was afraid of the dark and loneliness, the one who would tug on the corner of my clothes to sleep when there was a storm, how did she become so sharp-tongued and twisted under my education? Along the way, under the cold gaze of Eliza, I had to pretend to ignore the ambiguous gazes and vague invitations of the elf matriarchs. What a pity! The adult art and various skills of the Dark Elves are their world-renowned art treasures, something that every man dreams of. All right, even without that sharp-tongued maid, I wouldn't be able to do anything. But thinking about it is fine. As a man, imagining isn't a crime, right? Eliza, don't sing "Father-in-law has a migraine" in my head. I shouldn't have taught you how to sing pop songs back then. Even more so, I shouldn't have told you what a father-in-law is. Wait till I revive. Before leaving, I took one last look at Anne, who was still speaking confidently, hoping that she would be able to stand on her own, so that I can collect the reward for reviving. What I didn't know was that after I left, all of the Dark Elf matriarchs heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. That robe and mask seemed to be god equipment. The true appearance and strength of the person within are completely unfathomable. There isn't any change in his emotions, his heartbeat is also undetectable. When I close my eyes, it doesn't exist at all. What kind of existence is that? Is it a demon? Human? Elf? Undead? Completely unfathomable. The two little girl representatives are obviously relying on his judgment. Yet, at this moment they are destined to leave. Why? Could it be that they are plotting something? From a certain perspective, the only obstacle in this negotiation is that woman's. In the eyes of the Dark Elf matriarchs who have lived through countless years, strength isn't scary. What is scary is always the unknown. Woman's, this person, is simply too mysterious and dangerous. As the discoverer of a new power of order, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to overestimate woman's. If the power of law is destined to become a powerful order like the Holy Light, we might be facing a future god. But no matter what, his departure is a good thing for the negotiation. Perhaps we should let Shadow follow him, if there is a chance. Lucina, the first matriarch of Morseblight City, from a certain perspective, is Sulphur Mountain City's neighbor. Even though those eccentric dark elves who believe in the holy light caused the original First Family to lose the trust and favor of the Spider Queen, allowing the Siphon family which Lucina belongs to rise in power. But no matter what, Diana Eason, who betrayed the dark elves and is living better and better, is still the humiliation of Morseblight City. If this humiliation isn't wiped away in time, the Spider Queen has never been a reasonable god. The pitiful state of the previous first matriarch who was turned into a spider elf and wailed in agony is still fresh in her mind. But at the same time, Kaja who is chatting with and suddenly glances at her, as though seeing through her selfish intentions. If there is a chance, send a small gift to deepen your relationship with that lord and form an alliance with Sulphur Mountain City, this new autarch, to fight for the leadership of the entire Underground Alliance. This is a huge matter that concerns the entire Dark Elf race. No one would be so short-sighted to affect the big picture for their own selfish desires. Even if Lucina changes her words quickly, the moment Kaja's gaze stops on her, her heart feels as though it has stopped beating and her back is instantly soaked in cold sweat. For Kaja to be able to control a small half of the Dark Elf race, Lorcie's blessings alone aren't enough. Among the vicious and merciless Dark Elves, this High Priestess who always has a smile on her face also uses bloody suppression to strike fear into the hearts of those who resist. Otherwise, why would the Dark Elves, who view rebellion as glory, obey this highest leader in name? Then, the gift will be prepared by you, the respected matriarch Siphon, personally. Right now, we indeed need an ally that is worth trusting. Yes, it's my honor. I'll do it perfectly. Having no time to care about the snickering of the other matriarchs, Lucina Siphon can only feel the joy of surviving a calamity. Then, let's confirm the communication channel between us. The alliance between the two powers, even if it is an alliance with their own ulterior motives, there are too many details to discuss. This conference is destined to last for a long time. As for me, I don't really care. No, it should be said that there is no need for me to care. Just like what I said to Eliza, the negotiation between countries and powers is actually no different from buying vegetables in the market. It is nothing more than giving me 2 cents and I will give you an extra carrot or potato. When the market price is fixed, no matter how skilled the negotiation is, it can only move the price slightly. To put it bluntly, the outcome of the negotiation is usually determined before the negotiation even begins. What can't be obtained on the battlefield, can't be obtained on the negotiation table. Alright, I know that there are special cases. Let's not talk about that uncomfortable history. If the ruler is that stupid, then no matter how much negotiation or how much war is, it would be meaningless. That market price that dominates the outcome of the market transaction is the situation that both sides face before the negotiation, the bargaining chips that they possess and can exchange. The more anxious the side is, the easier it is for them to lose the initiative in the negotiation. On the other hand, the side with more bargaining chips is more likely to trade small for big, earning big. Due to our hard work in this period of time, the initiative in the negotiation is already in the hands of Sulphur Mountain City. Molly and Sho have been on the move recently, ain't Sterna. Edgewer and the demon behind him are as cunning and fickle, obviously a two-faced person who can't be relied on. Adding on the dark elf matriarchs who never know what is loyalty, the pressure on Kaja should be huge. I remember that in the original history, 10 years later in the Underground Alliance's epic war against the Surface, the highest leader of the Dark Elves is a Dark Elf matriarch named Victoria. The abdication of a Dark Elf matriarch has never been peaceful, and it is impossible for them to abdicate voluntarily. After all, that usually means an ending worse than death. Then, no matter if it is her or the Dark Elf faction that she represents, they are in dire need of allies now. As for Sulphur Mountain City, this negotiation and even the application to join the Underground Alliance, they can just turn around and leave if they are unable to come to an agreement. At the very least, before my little jokes and arrangements are exposed, there is no reason for Sulphur Mountain City to get involved in this mess. Since the initiative in the negotiation is in our hands, not to mention that the other party has something to ask of us, they are even determined to form an alliance with Sulphur Mountain City. Then, the Dark Elves have to succeed in the negotiation. We, on the other hand, don't care about the outcome of the negotiation. Furthermore, we have a lot of bargaining chip. No matter how we negotiate, the winner will be us. This is also the reason why I have been delaying my contact with Kaja and Ainsterna. I want to make them anxious, worried that if we come to an agreement with Sho and Molly, it would cause the internal balance of the alliance to tilt once again. This is also the reason why I said that the outcome of the negotiation has been decided long before the negotiation. Furthermore, after confirming that Anne and Eliza's negotiation skills are above average and that they don't show any signs of fear or panic, I left with a peace of mind. At this moment, walking on the streets of Vance, looking at this alternate form of prosperity, I intend to start my own plan. I, Womians Roland, am not a magnanimous person. Since you dared to launch a sneak attack on Sulphur Mountain City, you should have thought of the possibility of retaliation. Sho and Molly, it is time for you to return what you owe me. Chapter 40. Iron Bloodline, Bronze Body, Silver Prestige, Gold Will, Legendary Venerable, World Saint, Immortal Epic, Indestructible Demigod. The names of these power levels are enough to explain a lot. Iron Bloodline is defined by the system as Level 1 to Level 20. At this time, most people have just started their job, and the power they can grasp usually comes from their bloodline. However, at this time, the path of growth has already been determined. Does it sound very puzzling? Then let's use the system to explain it. The following three are the most common close combat jobs of the three races. Standard Beastman Berserker Template. Strength, 15, Agility, 8, Vitality, 12, Main Attribute. Strength, Race Talent, Berserk. Standard Dark Elf Assassin Template. Strength, 12, Agility, 14, Vitality, 9, Main Attribute, Agility, Race Talent, Magic Resistance. Standard Human Warrior Template. Strength, 12, Agility, 8, Vitality, 10, Main Attribute, Strength, Race Talent. None. Strength is the power of the physical body, agility is the combination of reflexes and balance, and vitality is the health and sturdiness of one's life. They are all the most important attributes of close combat jobs. In the Iron rank, the rookies of the various races will work hard towards the standard template. Through training, they will increase their strength. That so-called innate divine strength is probably a natural strength plus 2. As they work hard, they will get closer and closer to this template. When all their basic abilities reach the standard, it is time to break through to the next rank. Why, complaining that it is unfair. Beastmen and Dark Elves have a total of 35 melee attributes, but humans only have 30, and they don't even have race talent? Sorry, this world has always been unfair. The natural attributes and abilities of the races are not equal. Otherwise, there would not be so many disputes and discrimination. As the two sides work hard, the difference in talent will further increase this inequality. This is like a person walking and a person riding a horse starting at the same time. After the same amount of time, the person riding the horse will definitely run further. For example, a normal beastman's strength will increase by 0.1 every level, and it will increase by 2 points at level 20. On the other hand, a human warrior can increase by 1 point at level 20, which is enough to be called a good seedling for a strength-type warrior. Moreover, this was a comparison without considering the racial talent. The racial talent of a powerful race was usually extremely shocking. Among warriors of the same rank, there was a huge difference in actual combat power between different races. This had become a common understanding in this world. However, in contrast, humans, the race with the worst talent, had the fastest growth rate. The more powerful a race was, the slower their growth rate would be. Dragons needed 100 years to become youths, and elves needed 200 years to become adult. For humans, 70 to 80 years was more than enough for them to reach the peak of their prime. In game terms, the weaker the job or race, the lesser the experience required to level up. Using myself as an example, when I was at the initial stages of legend rank, the experience required for a Lich was at least 3 times that of a human mage. Training from scratch was a pain. However, due to the difficulty of breaking through each rank, this advantage wasn't much for a top-tier expert. However, to create a large number of low-tier warriors, or cannon fodder, a mortal race like the humans had an obvious advantage. On the other hand, the elves of the silver race were adept at creating a large number of middle-tier experts. The dragons of the gold race might have a small population, but no one dared to look down on them. If the iron rank was still the beginning of the journey, and they were mainly imitating the words of their seniors, then the warriors who had reached bronze body would start to train their combat skills, dig out their potential, improve themselves, and forge their own perfect war body. In game terms that were easy to understand, work hard to learn skills, increase talent, increase stats, silver dignity. At this level, the physical body was already close to the limits of mortals. They would start to train their will, train their combat skills, and combine the power of their spirit and will to form a battle style that was most suitable for them. In game terms, the character template had already been formed, and the increase in stats would slow down. It would be too difficult to continue grinding stats, so they could learn a few big moves to show off. Gold will. At this level, experts would start to combine their specialties to find a path that was suitable for them. If they could obtain a specific high-tier job and inheritance, then their growth would be even faster. In game terms, it would be to choose a path and advance, entering the next level from the root, a new starting point. Above that, Legend tier would be the soul imprint. Saint tier would be the soul world. I have briefly mentioned it before, so I won't talk about it for now. Speaking of this, perhaps some people would be able to guess why and couldn't defeat Eliza no matter what, and was a human. The amazing thing was that she was a mixed-blood human with part of the Phoenix bloodline. At the pinnacle of Gold tier, although she didn't have any racial talents, her main attribute, strength, had reached 19 points. At the very least, in terms of basic attributes, she had already stepped on the edge of a Legend tier warrior. Different from other games in other worlds, it is very difficult to increase basic attributes in this world. However, in the later stages, 4 or 5 attribute points would make a huge difference. However, her opponent, Eliza, was a half-demon favored by the Abyss. Her racial talent was the Abyss summoning. As long as she was willing to respond to the summoning and demonize, she would be able to obtain a huge increase in her attribute. At her current level, she was already a medium demonization, strength plus 12, agility plus 12, stamina plus 12, intelligence plus 12, charm plus 6, will minus 6. Just this level of increase was enough to render her helpless. Eliza, who was a demonkin, started off with 12 points of strength. Adding on another 12 points, a mage who was able to crush a warrior in terms of strength was born. Adding on the overall advantage in agility and stamina, it would be a joke for a monkey to defeat a dinosaur by relying on battle technique. No matter how powerful the battle technique was, in the end, it was still a test of one's basic attribute. That was why Eliza had the ability to catch the god sword barehanded. Adding on those messy body arts that I had imparted to her, as well as her self-created close combat technique of combining magic and martial arts with ice, not to mention and who was at the pinnacle of Gold tier, even a Legend tier Shueti might not be able to win against her. As my favorite student as a close combat mage, Eliza had, without a doubt, surpassed her teacher. This was indeed unfair, but compared to Little Red's ancient red dragon perfect body, immune to poison, plague, and fire, increasing all attributes by 30, Eliza's medium demonification was already very reliable. I reckoned that even if she were to fully demonify, all her attributes would only increase by 20 points and her will would plummet. Of course, there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The power of the abyss of chaos was destined to be difficult to obtain. A lowered will would make it harder and harder for her to resist the summoning of demonification. In the end, she would completely turn into a demon. I personally forbade her from using the abyss summoning talent. In fact, using the contract magic invented by the devils, I added this clause into the contract between me and Eliza. Before the salary was paid and the contract was settled, I forbade her from using her physical body to instinctively demonify. The root of the devils and demons is the river Styx, and the two of them are unquestionably mortal enemies. This can be considered as using the power of the river Styx to resist the summoning of the river Styx. This is a method that I came up with when there was no other way, a way out when there was no other way out. Perhaps, one day, Eliza would be like the other demon descendants, unable to resist the summoning of the abyss in her bloodline. Just like my foolish younger brother, she would walk into the door leading to hell, the abyss, and become a resident of the lower plane. However, I hoped that with my obstruction, that day would be delayed indefinitely. At least, in my lifetime, I wouldn't let all of this happen. Alright, there are always good and bad things in this world. Relying on the racial advantage of this half-demon, Eliza's current battle prowess isn't inferior to the legend-rank battle prowess that the other underground city lords are proud of. Eliza is indeed very strong. As a human, and is slightly weaker. After all, she is only a 19-year-old girl. However, the strength of a gold-rank pinnacle is enough to crush the common sense of a human. However, Adam and I aren't very satisfied. After all, in the underground world where experts are as common as clouds, a legend-rank underground city lord is only the average standard. Right now, both Eliza and Anne are only at the pinnacle of gold rank, stuck at the step of forming their own soul imprint. It is hard for an outsider to help them at this step. Their soul imprint needs to be sharpened, regardless of whether it is in battle or in life. They need setbacks and failures to discover their own shortcomings. They need victories after bitter battles to uncover their own strengths and self-confidence. They need all kinds of experiences that can affect their lives. Naturally, the two of them are talented and their foundations were built by Adam and I. The only thing they lack is experience. The Dark Elves won't be easy to deal with. However, with the two semi-gods, Marguerite and Adam, backing you up, they wouldn't dare to touch you directly. Work hard, there isn't much time left. Even with me, the butterfly, causing trouble, the day when the underground world comes to an agreement to attack the surface won't be too far away. Alright, let's stop talking about serious matters here. What I am going to do next, if I were to leave it to them, it wouldn't be accumulating experience but murder. When I silently walked into the Vance City's Platinum Order auction house, there wasn't a hubbub of noise at all. However, the moment I walked in, all of the noise disappeared. Everyone turned their gaze towards the figure at the entrance. Because he is too bright. The silver light of order and law surges on his robe. The semi-god equipment mask carries with it the dignity of judging everything. The thick yellow leather book tied to the left of his waist shines with the unique lines of law unique to god equipment. That worn-out gavel on his waist is also filled with the brilliance of the power of law. Obviously, it is also a semi-god equipment or above. A god equipment and 3 semi-god equipment. Even a true god would be moved. It would be weird if he doesn't get robbed when he goes out. Perhaps the entire underground dragon city would be mobilized for him. I just want to dazzle you all. However, even a fool would know that those who would bring such equipment out must be extremely stubborn. However, there are always fellows who wish to get lucky. The next moment, 2 little thieves who were forced by their superior to step out walk out from the shadows and approach my side. Incantation of law, judgment. My luck isn't bad. This unlucky fellow, who is so red that it is almost black, seems to have done something extremely atrocious within a few hours. Thus, incantation of law, death penalty, hanging. Under the six-circle death sentence, an invisible noose hangs him in mid-air. Then, it is time for the sinner to repent before he spits out his tongue, as the power of law that only targets sinners, in the face of this six-circle incantation of law, gold rank. This pitiful silver rank thief doesn't even have the time to scream before he walks into death. In front of the perverted corpse, another unlucky fellow collapses onto the floor. He is also scared to the point of peeing his pants. After all, he didn't even have the time to react before his old partner mysteriously dies in front of him. Not only that, he dies so tragically. The death of the scout is within the expectations of those who are observant. However, for him to die in such a bizarre manner, no one is able to predict it. The blankness that represents the unknown is always the color that people are most wary of. Ignoring the lucky fellow who thinks that he survived because he didn't commit any crimes in the past few hours, I walk to the front of the auction house's counter. Wherever I go, it is as though Moses is parting the ocean. I am here to auction a god equipment. Everyone's gaze is on me. The moment I finish my words, it causes a huge commotion. The auction hall that was eerily quiet just a moment ago is suddenly filled with buzzing discussions and exclamations. Of course, they would be shocked. Not to mention a god equipment, even a semi-god equipment or even a myth-ranked god equipment would cause a terrifying storm and leave a mark in history. As for auctioning a god equipment, it is destined to become history. Auction? Alright, you want to auction a god equipment? God equipment? God equipment? Are you sure? The eyes of this pitiful centaur lady are sparkling as she rambles incoherently. She looks as though she can't accept reality and her face crumbles. A god equipment. Congratulations to your auction house. This should be the first auction of a god equipment in the underground world. Your Platinum Order auction house is destined to leave your name in history. That centaur lady doesn't care whether she will leave a mark in history or not. The moment she hears that she is really going to sell a god equipment, her eyes roll back and she collapses to the ground. God equipment equals very valuable equals many people would snatch it equals if you break it a little, you won't be able to pay for it in your entire life equals you will be captured to be a slave equals you will be sold by evil people in the slave market equals all kinds of embarrassing encounters. This is the equation that appears in Centaur Anya's mind in an instant. I don't want to be sold as a slave and then XXXX. Thus, this lass with a rich imagination faints on the ground due to her brain overheating. This kind of matter of a big shot is a little too difficult for her, a country bumpkin who only left her hometown 3 months ago due to her obsession with transmigration novels. Slave? Who? I am not Beifong, I won't be interested in you. Even I didn't expect to encounter such a situation. What is going on with this lass? Why does her expression change so much? In an instant, everything appears and she even cries out such a dirty joke. But now that she, the auctioneer, faints, what should I do? Return directly? Lord. Please leave it to me. I am the manager here, Carlos. This is my name card. A well-dressed gnome runs over. However, looking at his blood-red eyes and messy clothes, it is apparent that he just received the notice and came in a hurry. Are you auctioning this book? Looks like as the manager of this auction house, Carlos knows a thing or two about goods. He knows that around a god equipment there are usually lines of regulation that it represents. However, I shake my head and snap my fingers. A skeleton soldier walked out from behind me. It held a black wooden box in its hand. Then, the box is opened in the next second, the entire hall is lit up by starlight. Carlos even thinks that the box contains a star that has just been plucked, until the light dissipates, it is a black scepter. It is simple and unadorned. There are traces of scorch and ice cracks on it. It is filled with the dust of history, and the only thing that shines is the silver gems on it. Starlight jumps between the various gems. The light has its own rhythm, as though it is a living creature that is breathing. In front of the star-like gems on the scepter, the expensive and extravagant mermaid oil everlasting lamp of the auction house is as worthless as a cobalt candle. God equipment, it is definitely a god equipment. That starlight is its line of regulation. Wait, it is a scepter. It is a scepter. Suddenly, Carlos's face steels. The ear-piercing shriek of the gnome reverberates in the hall. Looks like I have achieved the first step of my goal. For an existence who carries 3 semi-god equipment and a god equipment with him, if he were to take out another god equipment, most people would subconsciously think that it is the real one. Yong. Eternal night. He forcefully swallowed the rest of his words. He finally knows how valuable the auction item in front of him is. It is at least the weight of an empire. He is starting to envy the rookie who fainted. He wants to just faint and be done with it. Yes, Eternal Night Scepter. I mercilessly shatter his last hope and look playfully at the despairing gnome. Eternal Night Scepter? My voice isn't loud, but with everyone staring at us, this is enough. Very quickly, the news of the reappearance of the Eternal Night Scepter spreads across the entire hall. Most of the people are first shocked before revealing greedy joy. In the end, it turns into fear. Gather everyone and leave quickly. Something big is going to happen here. Go, go, go. Kay isn't willing to leave? Fine, let's go and let this fool die here. God equipment is something that can only be used if one is alive. Going by the rules of the underground world, fools who don't possess treasures will die sooner or later. When the news of the reappearance of the scepter spreads, countless top powers will swarm over. By then, it would be too late to escape. Of course, there are fools and those who would risk their lives for riches. Quite a number of people walk out in a line, but there are some who stay behind. They are afraid that the thief died too mysteriously, so they don't dare to make a move. I don't care about those who have the intention but don't have the guts to spy on me. Instead, I smile at the trembling gnome who is holding the scepter. There are only 2 conditions for the auction. Firstly, the auction will be held 30 days later at 3 in the afternoon. All individuals and powers are allowed to participate. Secondly, if the auction item is lost, I want you to compensate me with 20 top-notch underground cities including Mere Oasis, Cloud Water Tank and Flying Dragon City. What? Compensate your underground city? How can there be an underground city? Mere, I understand, the Lion Kings. You are here for the Lion King. All right, the eyes of this pitiful gnome roll back, and he follows in the footsteps of his subordinate. He had indeed stated my goal. Of course, I was here for show. If I wanted to open an auction house in this city, how could I not have a backer? And the backer of this auction house was the Beastman Emperor Shonu. Those underground cities that I had mentioned were also his property. Hearing the name of the underground autarch, a portion of the audience regains their rationality and instinctive fear, and they choose to leave. Sometimes, knowing too much can also be the cause of death. Fainting again. Is there anyone else who can manage this? The workers who are affected by my gaze either avoid my gaze or fall to the ground and play dead. Haha, isn't this Womian's? Long time no see. Are you here for an auction? Alright, we will accept this deal. A boorish figure walks in from the door, accompanied by loud laughter. Before he even entered, his voice reverberates in the hall. It is still the same appearance as when I saw him outside Sulphur Mountain City. The one-eyed old lion has thick fur and his muscles are well developed but not exaggerated. The scorpion tail at the back of his head drags all the way to the ground. That normal-looking black leather armor set is actually a legendary tier equipment that can't be bought with money. At this moment, the old scorpion-tailed lion beast emperor is laughing cheerfully in his own territory, as though he doesn't care about the crushing defeat and the loss of his army at all. Old thing, you actually didn't die. As expected of a man who can use his own personal army as a meat shield. It is just that your skin is thick. You managed to escape with your life, and you still dare to appear in front of me. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? One shouldn't expose others' shortcomings when fighting, but I insist on doing so. In an instant, the old lion's face contorts. War is the extension of politics, and all influential figures care about face. Under normal circumstances, no matter how intense the fight between underground city lords is, if there is a chance to sit together in public, they will give face to the other party and converse nicely. This is probably the first time he met an opponent who doesn't give face. In an instant, his face steels. Under normal circumstances, that is indeed the case. But why should I give face to this bastard? The old lion holds the sword hilt behind his back with both hands, but then, he is dazzled by the godly equipment on my body. Sho recalls the forbidden spell that affects the entire city, that formless and majestic heaven's eye, as though it is prepared to judge everything. Even the Beastman Emperor is a little fearful, and he is unable to make the determination to fight with his life on the line. Lord! There is a non-war agreement in Vance City. Noticing his master's hesitation, a fox beastman wearing a mage robe steps forward. He seems to be reminding his master to pay attention to the rules of this city, but in reality, he is giving his boss a way out. With someone persuading him, slowly, Sho's face relaxes and he loosens his grip on the sword hilt. Of course, a neutral city restricts non-war, but there are also arenas for settling personal grudges. Furthermore, these underground autarchs who are used to being unreasonable, when have they ever cared about rules? But what happens next is a commotion in the surroundings. They don't dare to believe that the invincible Beastman Emperor would be humiliated. Could it be that the rumor that the Beastman Emperor led his army on an expedition but was defeated in a remote area is true? Going by Sho's style of doing things in the past, the fact that he didn't flare up in the face of the insults is enough to prove that the rumor is true and the reputation of this Beastman Emperor is severely damaged. But what happens next is that the one-eyed Beastman Emperor glances at the surroundings, causing all of the restless people to stop in their tracks. Even if this rumor is true, there is a possibility that it might be spread out. If Sho were to misunderstand that he was the one who spread the rumor, then he would really die an unjust death. The one-eyed Beastman Emperor suppresses his anger. However, it is obviously impossible for him to come into contact with this scoundrel in front of him. Thus, the Fox Beastman steps forward once again under the signal of his eyes. Those who do business are guests. Naturally, we should treat them with a smile, even if that guest is an unwelcome guest. Lord Womians, don't you think so? These words aren't humble, they aren't sarcastic, and at the same time, they are very humorous and on point. I also laugh, seemingly skipping over the insults I said just now. If there is a ladder, then let's go. After all, I am here today to set up a trap, not to fall out with him. That is to say, my auction list, have you all accepted it? Yes, of course we have. All right, then let's sign the contract and use mine. The little fox takes over the goatskin contract and his face turns pale on the spot. On it isn't the common language but the devil's language of hell. This is a contract that belongs to the devil. The conditions written on it are exactly what I said. Firstly, the auction will be held 30 days later. Secondly, after losing it, you have to compensate me with 20 underground cities. The only difference is that there is a restrictive clause. If these two conditions aren't fulfilled, the person who signs the contract will fall into the river Styx, never to rise again. To humans and beastmen, swearing on the river Styx is no different from swearing on the sun. In any case, it doesn't have any effect at all. However, to the malevolent gods, demons and devils who live in the lower plane, their power and life comes from the river Styx. If they were to go against the river Styx that they made, even the Spider Queen Rose would turn into a small spider. Of course, the reason why I took out this contract is to make it clear that this Beastman Emperor is just a demon wearing the skin of a beastman. The little fox shakily passes the contract to show before being sent flying by the furious Beastman Emperor. But holding on to the contract, he hesitates. The power behind him is very interested in this scepter, and if he were to let it go, if you don't accept the deal, I will give it to the Black Pearl auction house next door. I increase the price at the right moment. Behind that Black Pearl auction house is another underground autarch, Einsterna. Edgeur. The power behind him is the devil's. No matter from their background or the fact that they are fighting for the leadership of the Underground Alliance, Sho and Einsterna are destined to be enemies. If Einsterna were to hold the auction and form an alliance with Sulphur Mountain City, then it would be 3 versus 2. Molly isn't reliable at all. No, the worst-case scenario is that he uses those 30 days to uncover the secret of the Eternal Night Scepter. But then, Sho naturally thinks that if Einsterna can uncover the secret of the scepter, why can't he? Even if the dark shaman under him isn't much of an expert in this aspect, he still has magi under him. If it really doesn't work, he can still seek help from the one behind him. No. If I really uncover the secret of Lord Yongye's strength, then I can become the second Lord Yongye. Would I still need the support of that existence? In front of the treasure, countless desires surge in the back of my head. In the end, it turns into a single sentence. I will sign it. But before signing, I want to inspect the goods. Of course. Thus, I tried my best to stifle my laughter. Why? No matter how those mages do it, those yes, and true really make me want to laugh. Before I left with the signed contract, I left with this sentence. You might regret it. As expected, what followed behind is the furious roar of a lion. The Beastman Emperor never regrets. All right, I will continue to stifle my laughter. That night, I heard that the old lion was cooped up in his study room for an entire night. Along the way, he killed 7 tacticians, 8 mages and 6 dark shamans, including that little fox. When he came out, he kept muttering to himself, I have clearly heard the call, how do I activate it? That night, I heard that after the old lion's auction house suffered from countless attacks, he moved to the army camp. But he still suffered from over 30 bandits, 5 military mutinies and 4 sneak attacks from other underground city lords. That night, it is said that countless underground city lords started to rush to Vance, preparing to attend the auction 30 days later. Of course, the ones moving along with them can't be counted as their army. That night, it is said that all of the necromancers and bandits went crazy. The passageway to Vance was filled with all kinds of dangerous people. At the same time, someone sent a report saying that they saw an undead lord from the surface world in the underground passageway. It is said that on the second day, the old lion's hair turned white overnight and he aged by 10 years. As for me, I look at the sky that is slowly turning white, waiting for the arrival of dawn. The wind is finally blowing, but this is just the beginning. Chapter 41. In the southwestern suburbs of Vance City, there is a wall and a small castle. It used to be the base of a grey dwarf merchant and his mercenary group. In the underground world where the strong preys on the weak, money often has to come into contact with power. Big merchants and big warlords aren't too far apart. However, it is a pity that the mercenary group that this grey dwarf chose is a little too ambitious. In less than 3 months after being hired, they killed their boss and ran away with the money. Then, this piece of land was bought by another merchant at a very cheap price. That merchant has some business dealings with Sulphur Mountain City, so he added a little more to the price and sold it to us. Personally, I like this base a lot. Although it is a little far from the central district and the surroundings are a little remote, it is a good thing for us, who have made quite a few enemies. At the very least, when the hunters and mages are setting up all kinds of traps and the goblins are happily setting up all kinds of mines, they won't accidentally injure others. Boom! It is indeed the right choice. Otherwise, it would be a nuisance to the people if there are explosions here and there. After getting used to the explosions, I nod my head as I look at the 70% mature goblins flying past. He lowered his head and ignored the 2 naked men who just flew past him, riding on Eaglestorm with wings and Shueti riding on his back. Should I be impressed by Eaglestorm's strength? Even though partial transformation is a high-level technique that only a few great Drool who specialize in transformation can grasp, he uses it to transform into a human body to fulfill his teachings of not wearing clothes. Wow! I am the king of the world! Alright, this Tauren who is patting his chest and shouting in the air is too much of an eyesore. I can't ignore him even if I wanted to. Thus, I pick up a disc-shaped goblin mine and throw it out like a frisbee. The frisbee flies in a perfect arc, but it is a pity that Eaglestorm's sharp eagle eyes have already noticed the ambush. With a flip, he easily dodges it. Haha, I can't hit it! That stupid Tauren doesn't know that his true identity has already been exposed by me. He even wiggles his butt and swings his bird at me using that king of the world as the target. Test the power of the fixed cannon turret and dwarf hand grenades. Open fire. After giving orders to the engineers and archers, I turned around and left. Behind me, as expected, the 2 idiots continued to scream incessantly. Humph, how dare you take a walk in front of me? Anyway, you're already in the legendary rank, and your life is tough enough. Even if you fall down, you won't die. It's a good chance to test out the defensive equipment. Yes, my lord. Actually, what I said was unnecessary. To an engineer, as long as they had the chance to test their own treasures, why would they worry about the life and death of their test subject? The triple-mounted gnome cannons continued to fire, while the gnome grenadiers continued to throw grenade. With a whoosh, countless rockets were shot into the sky. While most of the people are skeptical of the new field of engineering, I, as a transmigrator, got the officials of Sulphur Mountain City to support the development of engineering in Sulphur Mountain City. The current Sulphur Mountain City, due to the existence of many master engineers, has become the sacred land of engineering in the entire underground world. This time, in order to maintain those Rolands, as a punishment for the previous incident, I brought them along. With the help of these master engineers, the temporary defensive system is being updated at the speed of 3 updates a day. It might seem like a cliché, but it's enough to get the meaning right. After studying the engineering system of this world, I realized that their main source of energy is still the energy crystals obtained from hunting magic beasts. Fossil energy is still a few hundred years away from being practical. Thus, I knew that engineering wouldn't be able to achieve much in the short term. Why? It's just the conservation of energy. If you want to drive a large-scale machine that is sufficient to hunt down a top-tier magic beast, you have to first use the energy crystal of a top-tier magic beast. Perpetual motion machines like the Titan's Heart can never be mass-produced. Furthermore, the gnome's crude use of fossil energy has given the majority of the people a bad impression that engineering equals explosion, thus hindering the spread of engineering. At the same time, a chaotic sound came from the entrance. I walked over and realized that it was the familiar Draken Bayfong. Herald. At this moment, he was carrying a gunny sack that was struggling non-stop, intending to sneak in. But how could the Dark Elf Knight possibly let go of such an obvious criminal act? They surrounded him tightly. Let go of that horse! What struggled out of the gunny sack were 2 hind legs. I'm a centaur, not a horse. Right, there's someone outside? Save me! Save me! There's a kidnapper here. Hey, town security lady. I'm just following the guidance of my instincts and carrying out the duties of a hunter to hunt a prey back. This isn't your jurisdiction, so you can't control me, right? Needless to say, for a moment the town security was at a loss for words. From a certain perspective, they really didn't have the authority to enforce the law in this city. Looking at this perverted hunter who could speak eloquently, I couldn't help but think of the perverted unit of calculation that the town security had recently started, Beifeng's demeanor. There are too many perverts in Sulphur Mountain City, but Beifeng's degree of perversion is still unparalleled, so he was used as the perverted unit of calculation. This Beifeng's demeanor was decided by everyone's vote. He himself was hated by everyone, so it was one Beifeng. That pervert who always seduces noble ladies only had half of his votes, 0.5 Beifeng. The explosive maniac brothers had 0.6 Beifeng. That ugly hooked nose, Eaglestorm, had 0.8 Beifeng, and that Tauren who always strips naked had 0.1 Beifeng. Wait, why are they both perverts who have a habit of streaking? The difference between the two of them is so huge. They don't even have the ability to show themselves. They are the most detestable. Alright, that female dark elf Yawn's valiant reply made me blush with shame. Furthermore, don't be fooled by his thick looks. That Tauren is very obedient. He doesn't retaliate when hit. He doesn't retaliate when scolded. He's strong and can withstand beatings, completely fitting the standard of a good man in our hearts. Actually, there are quite a few girls in the group who are interested in him. If he can get rid of his bad habit of stripping naked all the time, he might become even more popular. After all, no one likes their property, man, to be exposed in public. Alright, should I say, as expected of dark elves? Back then, I even took the opportunity to test them. That Roland? 10 Beifeng. I'm sorry, I know that he has a deal with the judicial system, and you wish to exempt him. But whenever we think of him, everyone's teeth itch with hatred. In the end, we unanimously set him as the highest value. 10 Beifeng, how is he second? 5 Beifeng. Of course it's 1 Beifeng from Beifeng himself. That bone must be a pervert with water in his head. Otherwise, why would he keep harming others without benefiting himself? Alright, when I thought about how I was labeled as an idiot with water in his head, that was 10 Beifeng, and that stupid Tauren above me only had 0.1 Beifeng demeanor, and there was even a girl who liked him, I couldn't help but get angry. Engineers, if you can't defeat him, then lock him up. If you defeat him, lock him up. Work harder, I want to see the results before lunch. Alright, the moment I said that, the firepower increased by more than 3 times. I slowly walked to the side of the Draken, who was still flaunting his prowess. You guys, have you all gone stupid from reading the law? This isn't under your jurisdiction, but you guys aren't law enforcers either. Since you are all individuals, and no one is going to bother you, why do you need to consider so much when you want to beat someone up? That Beifeng was indeed alert. The moment I spoke, he already intended to escape. Incantation of law, sentence. Incantation of law, restrict personal freedom. As expected, the Beifeng who just completed the kidnapping instantly turned light red, and then, he was frozen on the spot by the following incantation. Beat him up. Perhaps my command was unnecessary. The town security, who were already gnashing their teeth in hatred, had already swarmed forward. Those who kicked him were already considered polite, those who used whips, iron shovels. Looks like it's one thing to catch him in Sulphur Mountain City, but the rule of not abusing prisoners made the town security feel suffocated. While they were fighting, I was looking at the quest window worriedly. Daily quest. Release dogs to injure people, send your underlings to beat up the people you don't like. The stronger the target, the more vicious the beating, the better the reward. Current completion rate, 2/3. Hero, do you think that as a demon king, I don't have loyal lackeys? If you want to meet me, first get rid of my left and right protectors, 3 sky gods, 4 heavenly kings, 5 Vajras, 6 guardians, 7 arhats, 8 heavenly dragons. Ha ha ha, I will be waiting for you at the 99th floor of the labyrinth. You are still missing one, who are you looking for? Forget it, just find anyone. With this bunch of perverts around, do you think I won't be able to find a reason to beat someone up? Thank you. But, can you take responsibility for me? A cowardly voice sounded beside my ear, but the content was inconceivably explosive. Even the town security were so frightened that they forgot to beat up Bayfong. Not far away, the gnome cannon stopped in shock. What, take responsibility? Me? Luckily, the mask covered his face, otherwise, everyone would be looking at the awkward expression of his old bones dropping off. I looked carefully, and it turned out that I really recognized him. You are the one from the day before yesterday? That's great, Lord, you still remember. It is because of you that I lost the most important thing. A golden ponytail fluttered in the wind. Half of the centaur's body was still in the gunny sack, but the bashful blush extended all the way to his neck. Lord, can you take responsibility for me? I don't ask for much, as long as I can eat my fill, I can even sleep in the corridor. Faintly, I felt that the gaze looking at me behind me had changed, from respect to scum. Still so young. Could it be that Lord is also a specialty of Sulphur Mountain City? Pervert? Still a centaur, his lower body is still that of a horse. Seems like Lord's tastes are the same as Bayfeng's. No wonder Lord didn't find a girlfriend in Sulphur Mountain City, and just fooled around outside. Humph, the perfect image in Momo's heart has crumbled. How disappointing. I thought that Lord was handsome, but I didn't expect him to be a pervert as well. Furthermore, he is a hypocrite who pretends to be righteous. My hate level has increased. At least 0.9 Bayfeng. Actually, we shouldn't talk too much about our private hobbies. Lord is also a man and he has the freedom to choose his own hobbies. However, it isn't right to abandon someone after messing around. Diana, the town security team leader, is indeed very understanding, but I really don't need this kind of understanding. Voila! Hearing the sound of the rope moving, I hurriedly lowered my head. As expected, the ice magic thread just brushed past my head. Master, do you prefer Nanmu or black iron? I want to order it in advance. I don't need a coffin. Even though Eliza didn't say what material she was referring to, the frost on her face, the bloodshot eyes and the crazily twisting threads on her hands were enough to explain everything. What a picky customer. Then, just hang it on the cross in the paddy field. Not only is it environmentally friendly, it can also be used as a scarecrow to drive away pests. Under Eliza's summon, countless water vapor was condensed by her ice magic, turning into thin threads that brought death. As for me, I could only cover my head and scurry away like a rat. Centaur lass, I promise you everything. I will take responsibility, hurry up and help me explain. That's great, Lord, you are willing to give Anya a job. Anya is very hard-working. After losing my job because of you, Lord, I don't know what to do anymore. Luckily, you are willing to take responsibility and find me another job. Job? Take responsibility. After a series of exclamations, under the centaur young lady's explanation, the crowd finally understood that this was a misunderstanding. In front of me, the centaur young lady Anya, who was talking shyly while lowering her head to play with her ponytail, is the unlucky fellow who lost her job because of me causing a ruckus in the Platinum Order auction. She, who views her first job as the most important thing in her life, naturally couldn't forget about me, the one who caused her to lose her job. Originally, I found a job as a waitress in a restaurant the afternoon before yesterday. However, there was a holy knight who caused a ruckus there, saying that she wanted to arrest the culprit. In the end, she smashed the tables and chairs in the fight and ran away. In the end, the boss blamed me for not stopping her and wanted me to compensate her. Those female elf holy knight are so fierce, how would I dare to stop her? Holy knight? Or is it a female elf knight? This isn't Lu Wang Mountain City anyway. I turn my gaze towards the town security. As expected, the last-named Momo is planning to slip away. Catch her. All right, a few seconds later, a mumbling dumpling appears on the ground. Damn it, What is wrong with punishing those slave traders? Momo is the one in the right. Yesterday afternoon, I found a job in the bathhouse. But it was so scary. A bunch of perverts barged in naked to take a bath, and after bathing, they ran out naked without paying. All of the customers were scared off, and the boss blamed me for not stopping them, so I lost my job again. I silently turned my gaze towards those engineers. In the next instant, the intensity of the artillery fire increases by 3 times. However, yesterday afternoon, I found a job as a maid in the Lion King's residence. A few hours later, something bad happened again. It was so scary. A beautiful big sister suddenly barged in, saying that she wanted to borrow some scepter to take a look. Master didn't give it to her and they actually started fighting. Half of the Lion King's residence was destroyed. Does that big sister have black hair and red eyes? Does she have a dragon-like emblem on the left side of her face? The experiences of this centaur girl are too legendary. Even Little Red ran over to listen in. But, hearing Till here, she suddenly says with a stern expression, "Dragon Empress?" After getting an affirmative answer, Little Red smiles. Her smile is filled with malice. It's her. Hee, borrow the Eternal Night's scepter to take a look? I guess it can only be used to coax a child. The third reason that dragons often use for extortion is lend it to me to take a look. I am just taking a look. But if I really borrow it, I can still return it. The third reason? Then what are the first 2 reasons? I heard that your family has a beautiful princess, and that the boy in your family is destined to become a dragon slayer hero. Doesn't this mean that regardless of gender, it is a reason for extortion? Who made it up? So insightful. What a genius. Of course it is me who is born beautiful and smart. It is a pity that those bastards aren't willing to admit it. After I made it up, everyone has been using it. Ha, some things can only be done and not said. Since you have already said it out loud, they would naturally feel embarrassed. However, since the weak alliance between the Dragon Empress and the Beastman King has started to crack, the Dragon Empress should have come alone. Send a message to Kaja and Edgewar. Perhaps the third dog today will be very impressive and we will have a good harvest. Chapter 42. The reason why I chose to hold the auction 30 days later is not without reason. There are still 2 weeks before the Underground Alliance's biannual Alliance Conference. All of the big bosses of the Alliance should be on their way. Just nice. It is better to have fun together than to have fun alone. It is better to have fun together than to have fun alone. Going by the process of the Underground Alliance, joining the Alliance is very simple. As long as 2 underground autarchs approve of it, it is enough. However, just joining the Alliance is not enough to achieve my goal. A chance to make an impressive appearance in front of all the big bosses is a must. According to international practice, the new autarchs step on the old autarchs to ascend, defeat or tie. Perhaps the old autarchs like the Dragon Empress is the most ideal stepping stone. After all, even though her individual strength is the strongest among all the autarchs and her subordinates are all elites, in terms of overall strength and influence on the entire underground world, she is definitely the weakest. This weakest is not even one of the strongest, it is still a fundamental difference. There is no other reason, it has nothing to do with her personal strength and strategy. It is just a simple political reality caused by the racial composition of the underground world. The few underground autarchs who have ascended to the top, their individual strength and their strength cannot be underestimated. However, what is even more difficult to look down on are the underground city lords who support them. For example, Einsterna, his individual strength is said to have just reached Saint rank, Kaja is at the middle of Saint rank, the Old Lion is at the pinnacle of Saint rank and the Dragon Empress overall strength has stepped into the semi-god line, a whole rank higher than the other autarchs. Einsterna is the weakest among the autarchs, but he has become the core of the alliance. He is the last commander of the alliance's counterattack on the surface in history, which means that he has the last laugh. The underground world is always a place where the fist speaks. Even though his individual strength is indeed the weakest, his influence is the strongest. The 50 direct subordinates of him are already very scary, but the underground city lords who support him in the dark are at least 400. The reason? He is a human, at least on the surface. Thus, the other human underground city lords support him. It is that simple. The Elder Lion and Kaja are the same. One is the Beastman Emperor of the underground beastmen, while the other is the High Priestess of the Dark Elves. Their potential supporters are immeasurable. From a certain point of view, they are the representatives of their race's benefits and the highest leader. Of course, most of the underground city lords won't admit it verbally, but their inclinations in private are unavoidable. When Sho ambushed Sulphur Mountain City, he was able to pull City Lord HNG, who isn't under his jurisdiction, to be cannon fodder. This is also the reason why when the Alliance goes all out for a single goal, in order to not become cannon fodder during the operation of the main army, in order to fight for more benefits, in order to get a piece of land with better sunlight, more underground city lords will seek refuge with the autarchs and stand on their side. The strength of Sho, Ainsterna and Kaja's subordinates will snowball, and they will become true autarchs. Underground dragons? The young dragons who are willing to listen to orders are already under the Dragon Queen's command. There are indeed ancient dragons and even immemorial dragons living in seclusion in the underground world, but can Molly, who is only an ancient dragon, command them? When that time comes, the other autarchs will rise in power, and the only one who doesn't rise in power, Dragon Queen Molly, will fall. She will probably be reduced to a high-level fighter. Thus, her pursuit of power is much stronger than the other underground autarchs. The temptation of the Eternal Knight's scepter is much greater to her. Due to the constant fighting in the underground world, they would usually leave a sliver of mercy for those of the same race. However, the killings between the different races are bloody and brutal. There are quite a number of people who have blood feuds with other races. It is even said that the old lion himself was once a slave of a human underground city lord in the arena. Thus, the Beastman sovereign treats the underground beastmen well, but he hates humans to the core. As for Sulphur Mountain City, due to its multiracial structure, it might not suffer the inexplicable hostility of the other underground city lords, but it is impossible for it to gain the goodwill of those who aren't humans. Furthermore, due to the city lord being Adam Han, in the eyes of the exiled and the descendants of the exiled, a hero who saved the world is too glaring, making it hard for them to get along. Perhaps it would be better if Anne, who was also born in an underground city, takes over. Then, even if they were to join the Underground Alliance and obtain the seat of an autarch, Sulphur Mountain City is destined to be a fringe force. Thus, I gave Sulphur Mountain City a position from the start, an X-stick, a smelly stone in the toilet, yes, since it is fated to be unable to sit on the seat of the core, then I might as well add some trouble to the core. There are fringe forces and minority forces there, so by gathering these minority forces together, they can be considered as a force. If you want to attack the east, I will attack the west. If you want to attack the city, I will defend my home. This way, I can at least delay the bloody battle with the surface for a few years. If the undead calamity and the invasion of the demons were to start, it would be the turn of these idiots who are experts in internal strife and amateurs in external strife. This is also the case in history. The reason why the subsequent calamities are harder to deal with is because the previous few calamities in the world of Hechi have suffered heavy losses. Especially the ruling human kingdom. Despite having the largest population and the strongest overall strength, the internal strife of the humans, the internal strife of the cults, the invasion of the underground world, the invasion of the undead world, the invasion of the demons. Completely unable to play a role as a pillar of support, they were directly wiped out in a few wars. Of course, it is also because the races view the humans, who have the largest population and the largest territory, as a thorn in their side. In the original history, after the underground world and the human kingdom fought the Battle of the Bloody Plains, their population fell by 30%. Then, the undead calamity came at the right time. Shilluo Empire doesn't exist in the original history, only the Undead Wizard Council. They opened the gate to the undead plane. Thus, the two sides who were fighting fiercely just a moment ago turned into ants on a rope. In the more difficult days that followed, countless people speculated that if the human kingdom and the underground world didn't fight to such an extent and kept more than half of their fighting strength, perhaps the war situation wouldn't have gotten so out of hand. At that time, in order to deepen the thin ice of friendship and trust between the two sides, one of the remaining big shots of the Underground Alliance, the Queen of the Dark Elves, Victoria Siphon, even married the King of the Winter Wolves of the Ottoman Empire, Dasos. Because of this, they loved each other deeply, becoming a legend in history. It's a pity, it is said, that Victoria Siphon is a rare beauty even among the elves who have many beauties. Perhaps it is because of this that the King of the Winter Wolves left behind his famous last words before the war: "You hate that I was born late, I hate that I was born early. What I hate the most in my life is that I can't forget you even at the moment of my death." However, marrying an unforgettable beauty back home, and still leaving behind a grudge before his death, isn't he a little too discontented? How are we, old bachelors, supposed to deal with this? Master, you are so popular, how can you be an old bachelor? Even though the misunderstanding was resolved, the ice on Elisa's face didn't show any signs of thawing. I found it a little strange. Strange, you should have known that it was a misunderstanding right from the start. Not to mention that it was half of the army, even if it was a beauty. What can an old man like me do? You are planning to take advantage of the situation. My roar wavered under the ice-cold eyes that seemed to be looking at trash. This kind of situation usually means that I have really done something wrong, but I clearly didn't do anything bad recently. Under the cover of the 6-4 moves of black magic on your bookshelf, as expected, you were the one who changed my Beach Elves album to a male goblin muscular album. Those naked goblins, I almost vomited on the spot. When I was exchanging appreciation with Adam, his gaze was even colder than yours now. That was clearly saying, "So you are actually a perverted gay goblin complex, stay away from me." I even had the thought of banging my head against the wall and killing myself. Oh, so Lord Adam is involved too. Looks like I have to tell Lord Marguerite that it is time to clean up the illegal publications in the city. I am going to clean up the house today. Little Witch's Technique, Archmage Carl's Hunting Guide, not bad. But, Flame Explosion has arrived. Every time I read the title of the book, I felt a chill on my back. The artwork under the cover of those seemingly tight book titles are my lifeblood. They are the treasures that I collected with great difficulty in this world that is lacking in resources. Lord Eliza, please let go of those children. If you have any problems, come at these old bones. With hostages in my hands, I have no choice but to lower my head. You know very well what you have done. Please behave yourself. After saying that, Eliza bowed and actually left. In the past, after successfully making me surrender, she would be very happy. But now, looking at her drooping tail, this time, not only is she still angry, she is even in low spirits. Looking at this situation, and bounces over with a teasing smile and whispers into my ear. Uncle Bones, Big Sister Eliza is angry because of the gift sent from Morseblight City. It is a very beautiful dark elf big sister. Gift? What? The calamity that fell from the sky made me not know whether to laugh or cry. It is normal for dark elves to send gifts to build relationships, but I didn't expect that they would send a living person. Yup, an extremely beautiful big sister. And has never seen such a beautiful big sister before. Yup, I think she is called Victoria. What? Victoria? Victoria Siphon? Ah, Uncle Bones, you know her. So she is really famous. No wonder, such a beautiful big sister. However, and will work hard and drink a lot of milk. Big sister Marguerite said that men like big breasts. Although that big sister is beautiful, she doesn't have any breasts at all. I couldn't care less about what Annie said. The moment I heard this name, 10,000 alpacas whizzed past my mind. What was this storyline trying to do? Why did they send the future queen of the Dark Elves to me? Without her as the queen, how am I supposed to reconcile with the surface forces? Is the butterfly effect so exaggerated? When I rushed over, I saw a beauty surrounded by a group of dark elf knights. Thin eyebrows, warm eyes, eyebrows like a painting, alluring red lips, and the light red makeup on her made her look like a fairy that descended to the mortal world. She doesn't have the sharp aura and domineering manly aura commonly seen in dark elves, but she has the gentle temperament of a pretty daughter from a humble family, making one feel at ease and comfortable. She is the kind of beauty that makes one want to look at her more the more one looks at her. From a man's point of view, this kind of woman with the nature of a good wife and mother was the most difficult to resist. Moreover, if one were to insist on comparing appearance and temperament, she was even above rare beauties like Marguerite and Elisa. It was no wonder that her beauty was famous in history. No wonder the Winter Wolf King couldn't forget her. No wonder Eliza was so discouraged. She really is a super beauty. Furthermore, a virtuous wife and loving mother is my type. But the weird thing is, I instinctively feel that something is wrong. That's weird. I don't feel the urge to see a beautiful sister at all. Instead, my instincts are telling me that she is trouble, a huge one at that. Then, Diana's angry roar let me know where the problem lies. Victor Sphinx. Why are you here and why are you dressed up like this? Diana Siphon. Now, please call me Victoria Siphon. Now, I am a female priest Rose. Due to your irresponsible betrayal, Rose's wrath descended. As your only relative, I suffered from the vicious divine punishment and was permanently transformed. But fortunately, Rose discovered that I, who had turned into a female, actually had decent talent in divine arts. Thus, she made me her priest and saved my life. All of this is thanks to you, my dear sister. Facing her younger brother's seemingly calm but actually resentful questioning, Diana's face turns green. Her hand trembles and the silver avenger falls to the ground. The female knight's face is filled with helplessness and confusion, as though she is doubting what she did wrong. F***ck, it's actually a boy. Or perhaps I was once a boy. No wonder I instinctively feel that something is wrong. Turns out that under the body of that peerless beauty is the soul of a male. Wait a moment, if I didn't build Sulphur Mountain City, then perhaps Diana wouldn't have betrayed me. At the very least, she wouldn't have betrayed me for such a long time, angering Lorcy to the point of personally sending down God's punishment. Then, could the Queen Victoria of history really be a boy? This is totally possible. In the Dark Elf's matriarchal society, males are definitely unable to stand out. To become a leader, disguising one's gender is a matter of course. Furthermore, the elves' natural beauty and the fact that it is hard to distinguish between a male and a female. Alright, I am completely embarrassed. This time, the number of grass mud horses rushing through my mind is twice as much as the previous time. June hates that I was born late, I hate that I was born early. No wonder I used a male pronoun June. Perhaps the servant heard it wrongly. It should be June hates that I wasn't born a female, I hate June. You hate that I wasn't a female, actually, I also hate that you aren't a female. No wonder the King of Winter Wolves hated himself for not being able to forget Queen Victoria before he died. He picked up a man who couldn't be refunded to be the Queen's wife in a political marriage. Yet, he still fell in love with him. Even before he died, he was still thinking about him. If I were to end up in such a state, not only would I regret it for the rest of my life, I would even have the heart to destroy the world. Noticing that Victor notices me, he nods his head slightly towards me, as though he is about to say something. Ignoring Diana's pleading eyes, I turn around and leave. The truth of history should be buried in history. An existence that can twist the emperor of the Ottoman Empire, he is too scary. Chapter 43. Looking at the docile, young lady in front of me, I felt conflicted. I had once thought that if I were to meet an important figure in history, would I be able to be like those seniors from the transmigration era in the legends, making full use of the advantage of being a prophet to gain a huge advantage. But now that I finally met an important figure in history, and a super important figure at that, I was so conflicted that I didn't know where to start. Based on the saying of the mainstream transmigration era novels, when facing an important figure in history, I should either try my best to hug her thighs and build a good relationship with her so that I would be rewarded in the future, or I should take advantage of the fact that the other party hasn't developed yet and shake my body like a tiger, shake her again, shake her violently, and throw a large sum of money at her to make her into my team. But the transmigration era novels didn't mention this kind of situation. I don't need her to repay anything, and I don't need her so-called follower. Giving for free without asking for anything in return, to casually groom a potential enemy in the future? It seems a little silly. If this was a development that was delightful to see in the transmigration era novels, I should laugh lewdly, then take out the candle and whip from my back, stretch out my hand and say, "Hee hee, your sister is in my hands, you know." But I'm afraid that if the plot were to develop like this, Eliza and the others, who are eavesdropping outside, would rush in immediately. Even if I wanted to commit a crime, I don't have the tools to do it. An inexplicable sadness welled up in my heart. Will of the universe, can we have a discussion? Don't use this joke in the future, it really hurts my heart. Alright, if this was a story that happened in a male forbidden dimension, at this moment, I would be smitten by her beauty and kindness. After falling in love at first sight, I would be mesmerized by her beauty and kindness, giving up everything to become her servant. In the end, whether I would help her regain her male identity or end up together with her, it would depend on whether the author chose to categorize the story as normal or beautiful. Of course, if the author wanted to be cruel, my fate would probably be miserable all the way home. If the author wanted to have a pure love, we might even have the identity of childhood sweethearts and a previous marriage. Then, our journey would be bumpy. It seems that in that dimension, the male protagonist never had a good life. Yep, if this was some kind of anti-Japanese drama, then at this time, she and I would take out our guns and roll around while firing. In the end, our clothes wouldn't even be torn, and we would be able to engage in melee combat without a single scratch on our clothes. In the end, we would see which unlucky Japanese side was the one who would be torn apart before our budget ran out. If this was the 8 p.m. slot in a certain country, Victoria would be suffering from leukemia, or getting hit by an ox cart when she went out, or being bullied by an evil mother-in-law. If the plot was filmed long enough, there would even be an old doctor who would jump out and shout, "Actually, you are brother and sister." It seemed like the ending was not bad. At least the female protagonist was the one who suffered the most. If this was a detective drama, there would be a scream coming from outside. Then I could proudly shout that the murderer is right beside us. Then I could start blabbering on and on. Yep, this seems like a good way to increase the word count, my lord. A gentle voice reverberates in the room. As the host, she had been in a daze ever since she entered the room. Although it was rude of her, Victoria made use of this opportunity to size up this mysterious man. His thick robe and silver mask might have covered everything, but at times, his heartbeat, gaze, habitual movements and even the frequency of his fingers tapping on the table would reveal a lot to those who are good at observation. Victor, no, it should be Victoria now. She thinks that she is pretty good in this aspect. However, after 10 minutes, she still didn't manage to find anything. As expected of the great saint who created the power of law. There's no heartbeat, his gaze is reserved and there aren't any unnecessary movements. His entire being is like a withered tree sitting in meditation. I can't see anything from him. From Victoria's point of view, the reason why Womians was strangely calm the moment he entered was because he was testing her patience. While she was observing the other party, she was also being observed by the other party. Although the eyes behind the mask were dim, they seemed to be able to see through her. In the small space, the invisible pressure was still increasing. After more than 10 minutes, Victoria, who couldn't stand it anymore, broke the silence first. It was equivalent to taking the initiative to admit defeat in this little game of patience. "My lord? Do you have something to discuss with me?" As for me, I didn't know that the other party had already thought of something. But it was rude of me to call her over and leave her there to be distracted. Naturally, I felt embarrassed. "Can you tell me about your past? Including your elder sister." Even if it was to avoid being treated as a spy, Victoria wouldn't hide anything from me. Very quickly, I confirmed my guess. It turns out that Queen Victoria, male, became the female priestess Victoria, and this was all due to the influence of me, the butterfly. Previously, I took some time to look through the strategy book. Queen Victoria is such an important historical character, so how could there be any lack of relevant records? Then, I found a person who was hiding under the light. The epic hero, Moon Knight Diana. Yes, the leader of the city's comprehensive public security management team, Town Security for short, that I built out of interest. That silly knight who was always teased by me, according to the historical records, would indeed grow rapidly in the future war and become the general of the Dark Elves' Imperial Guards. She was also the most trusted general of the Moon Queen Victoria. Wherever the bright moonlight shines, all filth will be revealed. The female knight who was born as an evil elf crossed the boundaries of race and skin color to become the embodiment of holiness and justice. Reading till here, I was shocked. I actually turned the valiant and perfect female knight in the history into a person who would shout slogans and train punctually in the few decades of peaceful life in Sulphur Mountain City. Taking advantage of the rare sunny day, she would quickly change her clothes and look at the fresh snacks while gritting her teeth to hold back the urge to save up her dowry. But, personally, compared to an epic hero who has no sense of intimacy to speak of, I prefer a tomboy who is easy to tease. Seems like I went off topic again. Let's go back to the main topic. The Moon Knight is the Moon Queen's most trusted sword. Now that the reason is right in front of me, her only blood-related sister, naturally, she would trust her to the very end. From Victoria's words, I have more or less figured out the reason. If it was the Moon Queen in the history, with a legend-rank elder sister by her side, even a despicable male would be able to grow up smoothly in the Siphon family and come into contact with magic and the knowledge of the outside world. Facing the harsh reality and future, she would be able to make up her mind to change everything. Due to the fact that male dark elves are destined to be unable to rise to power, she disguised herself as a female, and with the help of her elder sister, she gathered her own forces and gradually rose to power. But here, due to her elder sister's escape, he became the abandoned child of the entire family. From the lack of elasticity, it is obvious that Victoria lacks the talent to become a warrior. If she were to become a mage, she would need to spend money, an astronomical amount of money to burn. Being alone and poor, it would already be difficult for Victor to protect his pocket money from being snatched away. How could he possibly come into contact with magic? His lack of strength caused his position in the family to drop further and further. It is really funny to talk about it. If it wasn't for the gods' punishment turning me into a female and awakening my talent in divine arts, perhaps I would already be the plaything of a certain matriarch on the bed. However, a small silver-rank priest is still the plaything of a powerful figure. Lord, now I am your property. I wonder how you intend to deal with me. The young lady's face is filled with worry, but it makes her look even more charming. That soft voice that sounds like a plea for mercy can easily stir up a man's desire to conquer her. In an instant I thought of the little drama that I just imagined. Your elder sister is under me, you know. My apologies, I misspoke. This face is too dangerous. I almost accidentally said the words in my heart. I look outside the door. There seems to be a commotion. Fortunately, even though I stopped, they didn't rush in yet. Then at this point I was truly troubled. According to my original plan, such a dangerous existence should have been thrown as far away as possible. However, Victoria was the Moon Empress in history. No matter if it was in terms of power or potential, there was nothing to say about her. It would be a pity to just let her sit around like this. It is enough to nurture an epic-ranked hero into a silly tomboy. If I were to nurture the Empress into a rice worm, it would be too much of a waste. You can follow your elder sister for now. However, I don't keep idle people here. Is there anything you are good at? I can help you find a job to do. A technique that male dark elves must learn to serve their father. Actually, it is suitable for both males and females. I have a very high evaluation in this aspect. Now that you are my master, if you have any requests, Speaking till here, the young lady embarrassedly lowers her head. The redness of her face extends all the way to her ears. Her cheeks are flushed and her elf ears tremble. It is really cute. This is already a rare moral principle among dark elves, but, excuse me. I stand up and walk towards the wall. Then, I use all my strength to knock against it. Pa pa pa. The entire building shakes. Not long after, this kind of earthquake happens countless times in this small campsite. The male comrades look at the big bump on their friend's head and smile understandingly. He is a male. Roland, hold on. Even if he is the most beautiful you have ever seen, he is still a male. Even if his body is female, he is still a male. You, Roland, are definitely not gay. Jay, definitely not. While muttering in my heart, I pity the famous king of winter wolves. Facing such a face every day, such a cute personality, it is too easy to turn gay. Alright, continue. What else are you good at? Let's not talk about roses. But, Lord, is your head alright? It's fine, continue. Looking at this man whose neck is ridiculously crooked after turning more than 200 degrees, Victoria can only sigh in her heart. Lord Womians is really amazing. With his neck crooked at that angle, a normal person would have died long ago. Yet, he doesn't seem to feel anything at all. I am terrible at interrogation and poisoning. My instructor said that I don't have any talent. However, in history, strategy and military affairs, I am the strongest in the academy. I am also the strongest in the entire Morseblight city. Hearing this, I perk up. Studying history, he is the strongest in military strategy, politics and history. He might even be the strongest in the entire Dark Elves. Then, I might really have picked up a treasure this time. Then, help me analyze the current situation of the Underground Alliance. That Eternal Night Scepter should be a trap set up by Lord. This Eternal Night Scepter was personally sent over by me. Sho felt immense pressure and even almost fell out with Molly. As time passed, the troubles kept piling up. This is obviously a trap for him. It wouldn't be wrong to say that it was a trap set up by me. If this is the extent of my analysis, the Moon Empress might really be blown away by the butterfly wings. Then, Lord, are you intending to ambush Dragon Empress Molly? If that is the case, please give up. You are underestimating the underground autarchs. This is a trap set up by them.